Philadelphia. I'm Stephanie. I'm listening to Phil Collins. I'm the only one here. And this is my show. This is Intelligent Luxury, and my website is intelligentluxurymagazine.com. Mom. Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. Jordan. I am a Knicks fan. I'm born in New York. New York. I'm not like that. In New York. Alright. That's all I know about that. So we're listening to Phil Collins on a smart speaker. Let's talk about Dallas. Let's talk about Penguin and the Mouse. They talk about what you should read for June. And there's The Fire Next Time by James Baldwin, the national bestseller. 1963, The Fire Next Time. I haven't read that, but I've read James Baldwin's his novel. Oh my God. It's about him and his brother and his father. And I read the novel. Why am I not thinking about it? Not Blackboard, that is Richard Wright. And Native Son is Richard Wright. Oh, help me, Lord Jesus. It's interesting. It's about religion. It's about theology, that book. Oh, God, James Baldwin. Well, I graduated from college for 5 years. I read a lot. I can't forget title now. I'm old. I'm an old lady. That calls the Popo on the map. James Baldwin. Himself from slavery, that's Booker T. Washington. Oh, go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain that Jesus Christ is born. Jesus Christ is like police going around telling people to forgive people, but it doesn't mean you have to be friends with your sexual assailants, eh? Righto? Oh, this is so interesting. The Fire Next Time by James Baldwin. I don't know if I read this. I did read Up, Go Tell It on the Mountain. I did not read If Beale Street Could Talk. I don't think. I might have. So then, well, I have to reread my books from college, you know? So, wouldn't you agree that Ta-Nehisi Coates, I met Ta-Nehisi Coates at a really interesting bookstore. And the bookstore that I went to, it was in somewhere in lower Manhattan, and they organized their novels by nation. So if the novel is about a specific nation or written by an author by a specific nation, that's how they organize their novels. I thought that was the most interesting bookstore. So he says basically the finest essay that he's ever read, and that's The Fire Next Time. He said Baldwin refused to hold anyone's hand. He was both direct and beautiful all at once. He did not seem to write to convince you. He wrote beyond you. So that's Ta-Nehisi Coates. It was interesting. I met him, right? And I was like, I said I'm going to go to the gym. So I was in sweats. But I like to support people. So it's so interesting how librarians support people, how they and the library staff try to help the librarians order books from authors that they like, especially staff who are ethnic minorities in this nation. So we at our library, we definitely, not just me, but other people, try to order a lot of different books from different people, especially Baker and Taylor. So we order books from Baker and Taylor, but then the librarians would ask us what books that we like to read from ethnic minorities. We had Irish in our library. We had a lady who used to make great Irish cake bread. And then we had Haitians and Jamaicans and African Americans and Asian Americans and European Americans. So we all had all the libraries do that. Even if you can't afford a book, I think it's good to still support to an author. And that's how some of us sit at the library. So that's interesting. He works for the magazine, The Atlantic, and at The Atlantic, that's a magazine like The Nation, The Atlantic, The New Republic. These are all the magazines that I used to read because I was a page at a library. So as we're shelving, we could take our books. And it's so interesting to read other people's, I don't want to say other people's, it's interesting to read the articles, even in the New Republic. You have to know what the opposing, you have to know what people are writing about in order to be able to present your argument or present your ideology or theories towards their ideologies and theories. So that's really interesting. I'm playing the music a little loudly to just block out the negativity. So, James Baldwin was a writer from 1924 to 1987, Penguin Random House. It says he was a novelist, he was an essayist, he was a playwright, a poet, and a social critic. So his first novel was Go Tell on the Mountain, appeared in 1953 to excellent reviews. See it, we wait, you ever know. So Penguin Random House has Penguin classics. I have the book Anna Karenina that we read by the War and Peace is my Penguin classic. So we read a chapter from War and Peace the other day. So I believe it is so interesting that the War and Peace. Right now, a lot of people are at war, a lot of people are at peace. There's more peace than war. However, it's a book that it's a book about people who know men who have to go to war. So why do we have to go to war? Or is everyone going to war, want to go to war? No, they don't. But someone hires someone to go to war. And sometimes they die. And that's what War and Peace is about, the families who have to send people to war, men to war, now women to war. So that's what really the novel War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy is about. And then it's talking about, and then if you read it, as we read it, this is life at war. And a lot of people don't understand how bad war is on people's minds. It's great, let me tell you why I think college is really important. It's a way to meet people from other nations, other states, other cities. It's a way to learn about different types, different societies, different subcultures. I study sociology in another major and study towards a business minor. And actually it wasn't easy. I wish they would lower the requirements for the minor. It wasn't easy, but it was interesting to take a business minor and study sociology. It's so similar to marketing, and that's really one of my ideologies or theories is that you can use sociology to study society because marketing is about marketing to people. So you can use sociology to study society. Marketers use study society to market products and services, just like other majors use are able to, like statisticians or psychiatrists. A lot of psychiatrists study advertising, subliminal messages in advertising, monitoring subliminal messages in advertising, and this is all the things that we learned in school. And also, even those people that didn't graduate from school, it's so important that people even after they graduate, continue their education. It's important to market your company. If you have an MBA and you're a CEO, and you own your own company, or you work for another company, or you have founded and operate your own nonprofit company or organization, it's important to still take classes. There are classes that are offered at different areas outside of college, and it's important to continue to read books. So, that's what I'm talking about books today, because I like to read. So it's interesting. NPR, for several, NPR isn't around. They always usually read like essays or poems or short stories and books on the radio. So that's what we do here. I like listening to this artist. I wanted to say it's about reading literature. So there's a lot of Irish authors like Maeve Binchy and other artists, but other authors, and you can look on the bookshelf for Irish authors like Maeve Binchy and others. Maeve Binchy was one of my favorite authors, and she had The Circle of Friends. And if you see the movie, there's a movie, but it's really like fun. I guess it's for women. They kind of call it chick lit. They call it, they used to call it women chicks. It's offensive to some people. But it's like lady literature. It's like women's literature. That's funny. I'm laughing at something. I'm laughing at shelving these books. So it's so interesting. I don't think I would have read these books if I hadn't been to a library. Worked in a school library at high school. And there's MaveBinchy.com and she books. No, it's so fun to read these books. They're about Ireland. They're about women, and it's just a fun book. I used to read a lot of crime books, and now I'm kind of reading less about crime. So they have The Few of the Girls by Maeve Binchy, Maeve Binchy Times, Maeve Binchy's Chestnut Street, Maeve Binchy Quintons. But the novel, it's like a lot about like infidelity. So so Maeve Binchy, she passed away, I think. But she was a writer, and they're just really great novels. And she also wrote nonfiction. So there was a lot of books about Ireland. It's really not about anything political about Ireland. It's just about the people of Ireland. I think I have the wrong author with The Circle of Friends. And then I'm sorry, Maeve Binchy is similar to... After getting my head slammed a couple of times. Oh, so this Maeve Binchy, but it's not on our website. The Circle of Friends. There's was another author that's similar to Maeve Binchy, and I can't remember her name now. Anyway. No, I like Appetizer USA. Let me tell you why I like Appetizer USA. I went to a golf course and they served a Jamaican patty. It was a curry biscuit. It wasn't a patty, it was like a curry biscuit. So I wanted to know what this. It was at a golf course, they served these Jamaican things. So I was like, oh, I wonder who. The guy told me the company, and I have to tell you, but they make really good hors d'oeuvres for people. So it's called Appetizers USA, frozen gourmet food products. So, I was at a benefit for the CGIS Institute, and the CGIS Institute is something that I should talk about. So the CGIS Institute, if you had a benefit, so I was at a benefit, paid for by someone else probably, and I was at a benefit, the CGIS Institute, and so let me talk about his name is Gordon. Sometimes my memory goes away sometimes, but it returns sometimes. So the CGIS Institute is in Rockland County. So sorry, Mr. Gordon. So it's so great. So I met Mr. Gordon because I organized a book fair at a library, and he attended, and he wrote a book. So maybe it's the book on the website. Let me Google his book, because it's about education. I'm asking myself, is the book on the website? So he is a really nice African-American man, and he attended my book fair. So anyway, he was Edmund Gordon Jr., and he received a PhD in education in 1957. So he was a Richard March Hoe, H-O-E, Professor Emeritus of Psychology and Education. And he wrote a lot. So he wrote an article in the New York Times titled Studying Race, Privilege, and Intellectual Levies. He wrote an article, an opinion piece in the New York Times for New York schools, 5.6 billion question beyond the classroom. And he wrote an article, always agitating, but never agitated. So I thought that's really interesting that he wrote a lot. So then, let me give you this round. He was also a professor of psychology at Yale. So Mr. Gordon, I met him. He was at my book fair, and so many books. I thank him and his wife for support of that book fair. But he's Professor Emeritus of Psychology, Edmund Gordon. He was the John M. Musser Professor of Psychology Emeritus at Yale University. From July 2000 until 2001, he was the Vice President of Academic Affairs and Interim Dean at Teachers College, Columbia University. He was a professional practice. He had a professional practice in psychology. He was a minister, a psychologist, a research scientist, an author, an editor, and a professor. He held appointments at Howard University, Yeshiva, Columbia City, University of New York, CUNY, Yale, and Educational Testing Service. And he served as a visiting professor at City College of New York and Harvard. So General Colin Powell attended City. I'm going to talk to him about that. City University of New York. So that's interesting. So when I met him, it's interesting talking about his book. And he has a book titled Supplemental Education, the Hidden Curriculum of High Academic Achievement. And I think that's interesting. And then the pedagogical imagination. So, using the master's tools to change the subject of debate. But if you are really interested in that book, we have, I don't know if it's on sale at the Teachers Institute, it probably is. So it's interesting. I knew about the Teachers Institute. I learned that from Ms. Woods, Ms. Wileen Woods, who was the head of an African American nonprofit. In Supplemental Education on Amazon.com, you can purchase that book, and it's an expensive book, but it's important, especially if you want to learn more about educating African Americans. The editors argue that white access to schools that enable and expect academic achievement is a necessary ingredient for the education of students. Schools alone may not be sufficient to ensure university high levels of academic development. Supplemental education experiences may also be needed. I think that is important. Supplemental education, I think I earned supplemental education with by working at the library as a page, as a teenager, but prior to that, actually visiting the library and going to different programs for children and preteens and teenagers at the library. Also studying at the library with my friends. So my friends and I, after school, we would study at the library. We would talk, we wouldn't run around, but we would definitely study and do our homework at the library. So after school programs are important if you're not able to safely travel to a library. And it's really important to have after school programs at the library and have people help librarians help the students with the homework. That's definitely needed. Sometimes it's very busy in a library and people need people to help people do the homework at a library. What's really interesting, there's a lot of libraries who have branches in, I didn't want to say that. So that's really interesting about supplemental education. There's a lot of camps that have their educational summer camps that people can attend at universities or private camps. So that's really important. And that's published by Rowman and Littlefield Publishers. And the title is Supplementary Education, the Hidden Curriculum of High Academic Achievement. So thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Gordon. At the benefit, which I was referring to, is the Appetizers USA. So the benefit was for the Sieges Institute. And the Sieges Institute, if you Google that, and Dr. Susan and Edmund Gordon, they have the Sieges Institute and Library. The Sieges Institute works primarily in collaboration with communities of color, particularly those of African descent. The Institute is about political economies of race, gender, culture, and sexuality. Uniquely negatively impact communities of color. The accelerating negative consequences of these processes make coming to terms with and working against Black people's oppression a matter of urgency. So, all these issues, discriminating against a group of people is bad, but just because someone is of a group that's discriminated against doesn't mean that they are a nice person or a good person or shouldn't go to prison. So it's a really great site. The website is CEJJESINSTITUTE.org, and I believe that you can visit by appointment. And I was at a benefit for Dr. Susan Gordon, and they serve these really good appetizers. So the CJ Institute Incorporated is also the Charles White Gallery and the Rockland African Diaspora Heritage Center. So it's really interesting place to be. I actually have been there prior to. But it's so funny about the food. The food was so good at this country club. And he told me what the name of the appetizer was, and I Googled it. And I found out the appetizer. So I'll tell you the name of the appetizer. Like, they have Philly cheesesteak spring rolls, but that wasn't the appetizer. Oh, God. So this appetizersusa.com, they have Mexican cuisine, Italian cuisine, Indian cuisine, and Asian cuisine, French cuisine, American cuisine. So I guess they don't want to say. So it's like Golden Crust, but it's a different product. Golden Crust is good. Good. I'm looking for this. So, oh, they have beef satires. That's good. You know, I prepare to talk about things at all times. As a reporter, you have to be able to alter your script. It was a Jamaican. Let me see. Maybe they don't make it anymore. It's a biscuit. Anyway, it was really good. So let me contact the company. Maybe they don't make it anymore. I wanted to tell them I couldn't remember the name of the appetizer. It was definitely an appetizer. But this looks great. They're gourmet hors d'oeuvres. They serve like a kale and vegetable dumpling. They don't make it anymore. That's crazy. I'll find out what it is. So that's Appetizers USA. But they have beef empanadas. They have braised short rib pierogi, brie and raspberry with almonds, phyllo, cake pop assortment, caramel apple and beggar's purse, chicken empanadas, casino shrimp, coconut chicken tenders, crab cakes, and quiche Florentine, and Thai peanut chicken satay. That's good. Remember, I made a chicken satay. You make chicken satay is really easy. You just take a boneless, skinless chicken, and you mix curry and peanut butter and a little hot sauce maybe. Then you have your chicken satay. So that's good. So that was a great event honoring two people who founded the, I believe, the Caesars Institute. You know, one of the first African American and maybe the only African American museum in Rockland County. What's really great is each county usually has a historical society. So I volunteered for a historical society, and I was on the board, and I like reading it. So the Historical Society of Rockland County has a radio station, and they say tune in on Monday, June 15th at 9:30 a.m. on WRCR 1700. Maybe I'll listen. And they're going to turn their attention to the life of Mary Horgan Mowbray Clark. And as a young woman, Ms. Horgan met and mingled with some of the most influential artists in the world or on earth. So that's good. And that's the rocklandhistory.org. They have a lot of information about ethnic minorities in Rockland. And that's the Historical Society of Rockland County. And they can tell you about the historical societies of each town in Rockland County. If you are from Rockland County, you don't live there. And that's at rocklandhistory.org. Right now, it's really interesting. They have different exhibits at their headquarters. And right now, I think they have Leaving Her Mark, Women of Rockland. And they talk about a virtual exhibition celebrating 100 years of women's suffrage. So that's really important, women's voting rights, being able to vote for women. But the past event that they had for a woman that I actually knew, and I actually lived near her, and she would purchase Girl Scout cookies for me, maybe, I think. And her son used to sell sweet potato pies. So it's called The Book. It's a book. It was an exhibit this year in February, and I missed it. It was just called Me Lucky, The Life of Hezekiah Easter. Very nice woman. And she won a seat on the Village of the Night Board of Trustees. And it's about the book just called Me Lucky. I'm sorry, her husband, I'm sorry. I got confused. Her husband, he's a nice guy too. But the wife was nice too. So this is a book about him, and obviously she'll be in the book. They say he served as a spy in the army. That's interesting. And he was a civil rights advocate. So it's really great that he was I actually met him. He was he, huh? Was he funny? Maybe not. I don't know. But it's interesting. At least he did some good works, right? He did a couple of good works. Isn't that great? So sometimes people send me press releases and emails during the show, and I like to talk about that. So there are a limited number of copies of Just Call Me Lucky that will be available for purchase at the event. The book is also available on Amazon.com. So they said, please consider using Amazon Smile option and choosing the Historical Society of Rockland County as a not-for-profit business. They also have books about Haitian Americans at the Historical Society of Rockland. But really, this is interesting. In the 1832 Blood House, they have a walking tour available, and that's online. And Jacob Lawford House. The Jacob Lawford House is owned and operated by the Historical Society of Rockland County, a nonprofit educational institution. if you look at publications on the rocklandhistory.org, you can learn more about the books that they have. They have True Stories of Children Who Lived Long Ago in Orangetown by Alice Gerard. And they have A Catch of Grandmothers by Firth Herring Fabian. And the book is for every mother, grandmother, and great grandmother. They have the book Bicentennial Gleanings from Rockland History. Blossom, A Girl's Adventure in Revolutionary Rockland. Blossom is by Eileen Switzer Clark with illustrations by Barbara Janet Carney. Blossom, an African-American slave girl during the book is about an African-American slave girl during the American Revolution, and Eloise, her friend, and her master's daughter. Very, very, I haven't read that book. That looks good. They have a book about Kim Shanks and Shanks Village, and they have other books. Oh, they have Dutch recipes from the colonial kitchen. That's interesting. They have a book, Haiti on the Hudson. The book is $5, Haiti on the Hudson. So, I was on the board of the Historical Society of the Nyack, and they have a book titled Black and White, written by Carl Nordstrom. Really interesting book about African Americans from like the 1960s to maybe, I would say, the 1960s. So then and after, it's a really good book. And I wasn't an editor. I actually just kind of helped with the book. So my name is in the book. So I thank Mr. Nordstrom Family and Historical Society of Nyack for that. And that book is called Nyack in Black and White, and you can get that. It's a really interesting book about a riot. They say it was a riot, maybe it wasn't a riot in Nyack in the 1960s, and maybe why people were rioting. It's about the NAACP in the 1960s in Rockland County and Nyack, and it's a really interesting book. So it's called Nyack in Black and White, Race Relations Over 3 Centuries by Carl Nordstrom. And he was he majored in sociology, and he was a writer. And that's at nyackhistory.org. So the book is only $20, and you can purchase that on nyackhistory.org. It explores the dynamics of race relations in the Nyack through their long histories. Mrs. Jean Tillinghast, she was the Village of Nyack's historian, and she asked me to read the book and look at the book. So it was really interesting. Some of the people in the book are really interesting. Some of them I met at the NAACP meetings. So, and then there's the book Remembering the Brinks Robbery, Rocklandia, the Nyack Star Quilt, and Haverstraw by Margaret Williams. A lot of interesting history. And they have a newsletter. So the president is Mr. Perry. And he graduated from Harvard. And he's an architect. So that's probably like why I'm interested in a little bit of really not being an architect and sketching, but also creating I kind of created a design. I was thinking of like a neo-Afro Black diasporian architecture, because we love the architecture around here, the Georgian, the Edwardian, the Victorian, I guess, architecture. A lot of Victorian architecture in Rockland County, New York. And it's really interesting to learn about this, to learn about the history. So this month's newsletter, that's interesting. William H. Hand of Franklin Street. I have to read that. So I think Mr. Perry, and it's so funny, and his wife, head of the Friends of the Nyack Club. So it's good to volunteer. Look who I met. Never met the guy. Said I was interested in the historical side of the Nyacks, and I worked at a library, and I sometimes had to look at the history room was near where the history room was there, and volunteering in the history room of a local library led me to meeting, Mr. Perry, a great architect, and a graduate of Harvard University. Led me to where I am right now, loving to read about books, loving to read about the history of architecture and African American architecture. So that led me to reading about Columbia University and their students, cataloging a lot of architectural history throughout. So when I was looking at websites for a new place to live, because a lot of people live in a lot of old homes, but it's so important to learn the history of the home where you live, even if you don't own your home, because you might have like a lot of African American history. For example, like my grandmother worked at a lot of places where she was that were pretty historic in Rockland County, and also if there's a lot of African Americans in Rockland County and Haitian Americans or people from the Black diaspora, Jamaican American, that might have historic homes. And just because you're not really rich, it's really interesting if you would submit your information to the Historical Society of Rockland County or the Historical Society of your town or city and within a town. It's really important for people to know about the history of people here in Rockland County. Is that good? It talks about Central Nyack overview from colonial days to the present. This newsletter, and you can get it at the library. I wish they would open up the library. I think it's an essential service. In this current newsletter, I understand why it was closed, but spring 2020, Mr. Leonard Cook is in this issue, and he was a man. He was a historic man, Leonard Cook. So they talk about the Central Nyack Community Center opening in 1971. Maybe I'll talk about Leonard Cook a little in the future, because he was an interesting guy. Oh, this is great. In 1991, Jean Porto did a oral history of Miss Williamson, and also of Miss Pratt. Was she the one that did the oral history? Now we can have video histories. So that's great. It's great that PBS is also, if you go to pbs.org, they are also recording people's history. If you have a history, if your parents are really nice people, you can talk about their history too. And then there's the Edward Hopper House in Nyack, and they have book fairs and different events sometimes at the Edward Hopper House. Very, very famous artist, Mr. Edward Hopper. And I've been to the house. It's a museum and study center, and they're going to have a virtual picnic and concert on July 9th. Maybe it'll be interesting, honoring Walter Kane and, and Bert Hughes. Hello, Mr. Hughes. Did he pass away and I didn't know? That's really sad. He was my band teacher. Mr. Hughes. I didn't know if I wanted to say I don't want anybody to bother him. He was my band teacher. I think he's retired. So I was in the marching band, and we played at football games. But I wasn't in the band at basketball games. But sometimes I would fill in for other flute players. They are flutists. My father told me not to tell everything about myself. I didn't want to say that. So we had a marching band. I played in the marching band in high school for the football team, and not the basketball team. Edward Hopper, they say, painted or sketched boats, ships, harbor views, and other scenes So that's really good about him. And it's a really interesting place. So don't we love Edward Hopper's art? So right now, there's a walking tours of Edward Hopper's Nyack. Ah, that's what I was looking for. I wrote about that, the Metro North Getaways program. Ooh, yeah, I'm getting old. I don't know where. What happened? Why it happened? Oh, there's printed maps available at the front desk of the Edward Hopper Museum at the Edward Hopper Museum. So it's so great. There's tours of Nyack, and then there are the walking tours of the Historical Society of the Nyaks. Which house can I talk about over here? I'm sorry, I'm looking at different houses here. Something happened on the Edward Hopper. Is that the right house? Was I at the wrong house? It's really great to look at the history of the houses in Nyack or in Rockland County. So thank you, Mr. Carter, for that. So that was a great thing. So thank you, Historical Society. Maybe I'll be at a meeting way in the future. With my mask on. No, probably without. So then, let's talk about what we need to talk about. So that led me to a long discussion. So Haiti on the Hudson, let me tell you, I'm going to share that on Facebook. I haven't read the book, but I have to purchase the book one day. I can't read every book. But I did read Nyack and Black and White. The Haiti on the Hudson, Rockland has the largest Haitian American community of any suburban county in the United States, and that was in 1993. This exhibition catalog documents the origin, evolution, structure, of Haitian societies and their economic, cultural, and religious life. So that's a really interesting it's really great that Walgreens sells history books about Nyack too. The Walgreens. So we're going to talk about Dallas today and their historical society and all that good stuff, economic development. Governor Lamont of Connecticut spoke yesterday about pandemics. Isn't it interesting to study the spread of pandemic? And luckily, the study of pandemics leads to curing and preventing pandemics. So he said that you can sign up for a CT Alert, the state's emergency alert system, which provides text message notifications to users. To subscribe, text the keyword COVID-CT to 888-777. Ooh. Hallelujah, there's a God, right? There's a God. There's good people out there. There's good people. And that's Connecticut. That'd be classy. So that's a really interesting classic book, Go Tell It on the Mountain. It's about religion. The father was really religious. He was a conservative, religious person in that novel. So it's an interesting novel about the effects of parents who are really strict on their children and about theology. So it's a really good book. Maybe we'll read that book one day. Edgewood Dental Cap. Really interesting. You know, I met her at Medgar Evers College with an African American librarian, and we were there to listen to their book event. So they have events, different events, and she was there. And I was there. It's so interesting. Medgar Evers College is the only HBCU in New York City, but you all out there, all of you African American, maybe if you're not retired or not, can start your own college and be an HBCU. A law school, a medical school. And it's really easy to start a school. You just have to get a charter from your state, and then other things. I know I read a lot. Sometimes I forget, but I have great. I study, right? So Medgar Evers College, they have a book, not a fair. Now see, this is where my memory. I can remember how to start a college, but I don't remember the name of the book of it. And I thank them for inviting me for that. So I attended several different years, and it's such a great program. It's by invitation only, usually. But I'm a member of the press. Oh, they have a Caribbean Research Center at Medgar Evers College, and the Du Bois Bunch Center for Public Policy, and the Center for Black Literature. They have a Male Development and Empowerment Center. And this is in Brooklyn. Very nice area in Brooklyn. Very nice school. Very nice campus. And the mission of the Center of Black Literature at Medgar Evers College is to expand, broaden, and enrich the public's knowledge and aesthetic appreciation of the value of Black literature and the literary works produced by people of the African diaspora. So Al Roker and like Mike Woods, they can start their own meteorological college. You can start a nonprofit within a college. So that's a HBCU. So you can have HBCU in a non-HBCU. So like a university have several colleges, and some colleges have several colleges. Also, it's a collaboration with public schools and organizations such as the Brooklyn Public Library and the Schomburg Center in Research of Black Culture. Very, very great a library that has usually an author award show during Harlem Month. Hello to Miss Dukes, Dr. Dukes, Miss Dr. Dukes. I know that she's on the board with with Mr. Williams, who I met, him and his son, when I planned fashion shows for African Americans in Harlem. It was for we had a black apparel design fashion show in Harlem with the help of my mom. My mom was there too, helping, and it was with a Haitian American woman who's an attorney who attended college here in New York State, and she's a Haitian American attorney who started her own nonprofit company to assist black apparel designers. Really great organization. I hope that she continues to promote that organization because a lot of people like that organization. So Ms. Deuce is on the board of the Greater Harlem Chamber of Commerce, and when I was on the board of the Black Apparel Designers, a nonprofit with the Haitian American woman who started the Black Apparel Designers Association, we we had a lot of fashion shows, which led us to having a fashion show in Harlem at Morris Park, which is in Harlem, and then we worked with Mr. Williams and the Greater Harlem Chamber staff to work with Deborah Williams to promote her line of clothing called Her Game Too. So it's so great. She used to have a store. I don't know. Her Game Too apparel is hergame2.com. And it's athletic apparel for women. And she is the wife of a retired Knick player, a New York Knick player. So that was her. Edward Danticat has the book Everything Inside. Crick Crack, which I read. Crick Crack is an interesting book about Haitians, and she wrote other books too. Let me tell you the other books that she wrote. She wrote a children's book called Mama's Nightingale. She is Haitian American, or Haitian, excuse me. Edwidge Danticat, After the Dance. Edwidge Danticat, Claire of the Sea Light. I didn't read that one. And Edwidge Danticat, Create Dangerously. So it's really no. I was a member of the press, but I also work for the library. So they invited me to this wonderful book conference at Medgar Evers College. So annually they have the National Black Writers Conference. And that's planned by the Center for Black Literature. Really, really excellent conference. The Center of Black Literature, the National Black Writers Conference. So the National Black Writers Conference, all their programs is rescheduled. Let me look up that. See. So I'll probably go to the next program. And it will be later this year. But it's so interesting. Let me read you about what they scheduled to have at this Black Writers Conference, this National Black Writers Conference in Medgar Evers in Brooklyn. So they have the John Oliver Killens Reading Series program. And they were the book Black Divas on Stage, Challenges of Women Playwrights, with invited speakers Elizabeth Van Dyke, Ebony Joanne, and Trezana Beverly. They were planning a National Black Writers Conference Poetry Slam. And I think the Youth Day, they were planning Youth Day literary programs. They were planning a film screening of The Hate U Give. Is a 28 American drama film directed by George Tillman Jr. with a screenplay by Audrey Wells. It's based on the 2017 young adult novel of the same name by Angie Thomas. The main conference program was a presentation of conference papers. It's a really, really interesting conference, the National Black Writers Conference at Medgar Evers College. Recasting our experience, the dismantling of African American works of fiction within the film industry as seen in the works of Ntozake Shange's For Color Girls Who Have Considered Suicide When the Rainbow's Enough. So that's a really interesting book. And Alice Walker's The Color Purple. They talk about pink and black romanticizing the urban diurnal. And that's, excuse me, next book, sorry about that. I didn't want to say that book. And then The Wake Work of Cartography by Nicole Walker, Lehman College, CUNY. Remember, a lot of colleges have publishing houses called presses. Where We Stand, Africa, the Black Aesthetic in Theater and Audience. That's really good. That would be a really good session. They had a panel the Dr. Edith Rock Elders Writing Workshop presentation. They were going to plan a town hall, the role of the media critics and reviewers on black plays and film. So I too wanted to talk about playwrights. Oh, that's interesting. The impact of hip hop and popular culture on black writing and screenwriting. And they have publishing, poetry, and playwriting, talk shop, short film screenings, and talk back. It's a really, 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 really great conference. And like I said, I met several people, including Edgewood's Dentacap. So because I am from Rockland County, which has the highest percentage of Haitian Americans living in the county and living in the U.S. in a suburban county outside of New York City, Miami, and other cities. It's really interesting. I pray that she's able to visit Rockland County. Maybe I can pay her one day to visit. So thank you all at Medgar Evers College. Let me tell you about Medgar Evers. So we all read the book written by Medgar Evers. Let's talk about Medgar Evers. The NAACP has information about Medgar Evers. Sorry, sometimes I have an accent. He was a native of Decatur, Mississippi, and he attended school. So it's great to go to Mississippi. They have a lot of authors there from Mississippi. So let's talk about attending school there until he became inducted into the U.S. Army in 1943. And then he enrolled in Alcorn State University and majored in business administration. And then he played sports too. He married Ms. Merli Beasley on December 24th, 1951. I wonder if she has pictures of her wedding. I used to work for Wedding Justice magazine and Engagement 101 magazine, so I was always interested in, I'm always interested in weddings. So maybe I'll write about a lot of civil rights weddings, I don't know. So he sold insurance for Magnolia Mutual Life Insurance Company, and he was the president of the Regional Council of Negro Leadership. And then he applied to the segregated University of Mississippi Law School. It's interesting. I listened to an African American student talk about Ole Miss on a virtual conference. So if you're looking to go to graduate school, even if you graduated looking for continuing education, it's good to attend virtual events online, where he talked about the police in Mississippi. He talked about the school in Mississippi. And it looked like a really good school. He's part of the student association there in Mississippi. Really interesting. So I was considering attending law school, so I didn't know. It's really interesting. You have to read the course descriptions. Right. Electives in law school are important, and also if you want to practice in that state, it's important to go to law school in the state where you want to practice, because you have to pass the bar exam in that state. So Evers became the focus of the NAACP campaign to desegregate the school at a case aided by the U.S. Supreme Court ruling in the case Brown v. Board of Education, 347 U.S. 483. And that segregation was unconstitutional in December of that year. And then Evers became the NAACP's first field officer in Mississippi. And after he moved to Jackson, he boycotted merchants and eventually desegregated the University of Mississippi. And he was forced to enroll Mr. Meredith in 1962. So Medgar Evers really integrated Ole Miss, and that was really interesting to see an African American student talk about Ole Miss, an African American student talk about Ole Miss, and he was a current student, and how things have about integration and about applying to law school. So you really have to be careful when you're applying to law school. It takes a lot of reading. You know, there are libraries where you can study if you're applying to law school right now, writing your essay. Go to a school that's near you. Ask someone to read your paper if you don't have anyone to read your paper, your research paper, your admissions essays. And the people will help you. Professors at the school you're applying to may be able to help you. You have to ask for help or you won't. You won't receive help if you don't ask for help. You know what I'm saying? So Miss Medgar Evers, she became an activist later, eventually serving as chairwoman of the NAACP. And Medgar Evers' brother Charles returned to Jackson in 1963 and helped his slain brother's place. So that's the end of that. So let's talk about the autobiography of Medgar Evers, A Hero's Life. Hero's life and legacy revealed through his writings, letters, and speeches. There are a lot of books about Medgar Evers. The Ghost of Medgar Evers. If you go to a library or bookstore, ask a librarian about the books about Medgar Evers. So, talking about the style of the Civil Rights era, I know that I'm kind of conducting research about the style of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and I wanted to know more about, he really wore nice apparel. If you look at some of the images that some of the images that depict Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., he really had great style. So there's the Dr. Martin Luther King Center in Atlanta. I've never been to Atlanta, Georgia. Well, I've never been to the King Center. I've been to the airport in Atlanta. Nice airport. So remember, let's talk about all these people who work for us to start a business. So easy to start a business. I have my own business. Very inexpensive to have, a channel on Facebook Live, on YouTube Live. It's very inexpensive. But also, it's very expensive to start your own e-commerce website. And then it's really inexpensive, through Amazon, to publish your own book. It may be even expensive to start your own business. So even if you close your business after a little bit, it's really great to just start it. Especially in places that need African American businesses or businesses. So the King Center, you can go find out about the King Center at thekingcenter.org. So you might have to make an appointment to go there as a group. I don't know. It's a 23-acre National Historic Site. Most of the park is self-guided and it's free admission. I didn't know that. I know that they have probably. Do they have a center there for images? They sell books online. Why don't I sell? Oh, they do have books. So they have a lot of books about Martin Luther King. So I love my mom. She's someone who's really historic too. So my mom is really historic, and she should hire someone else to write it. I think someone else would do better than I think. She's also historic. My mom is really intelligent, let me tell you. She's super, super intelligent. I want to listen to the manual. But isn't that great? Well, you can, just by me working at a library as a teenager and talking to the people from the Historical Society, led me to volunteer in the Historical Society. And college led me to working for civil rights attorneys. I actually taught a class with a civil rights with the guidance with the I also was a teacher's assistant. I didn't teach the class. I'm sorry. I was a teacher's assistant with a law school student and a civil rights attorney in college, where we taught about how to interact with the police. Try to be very polite with the police. so that if they do in fact hurt you, if it's in fact a bad police person, thank God there aren't a lot of bad police, maybe then maybe it would be great. So anyway, let me tell you about Dr. Martin Luther King had excellent apparel and accessories, and that's the story that I was writing. And I'm still conducting research. You do have to conduct research. That's about it. Oh, my mom is like really beautiful and petite. She's really petite. So I'm sure it's all because of this and my mother. My mother. So it's really, really, really interesting. My mother loves to read. We both love to read, and that's why I love reading. So that book by James Baldwin is published by Penguin Random House. So I thank the publishers for helping me with my events. So remember that Edwidge Danticat has a book titled Everything Inside. This looks interesting. I just like reading about books. That's why I go to the bookstore daily. You never know what you might miss or see or be able to read. John Grisham, new book, The Guardians. I remember I met Ari Fleischer. So I think of new books, just the latest book is the new book. So we had a little debate about that. When do we consider a new book? And he said maybe a year, and I said, all right, Mr. Fleischer. So he was the press secretary to George Bush. I think I said that. Ari Fleischer, he is the former White House press secretary. And he was President George W. Bush. Today is President George H.W. Bush's birthday. Yeah? So thank you, Mr. Fleischer, I interviewed him, and he is a communications and sports communications specialist. Let's see if his book's on his website. I actually did not read his book, but I kind of skimmed it, as we said. We debated about that. He's a nice man. Oh, so he knows about Rockland County. He lived in Westchester County, and he graduated from Middlebury College. That's cool. Maybe he can talk about his courses. I wonder, does he have his course catalog? I Fleischer wrote a book. It's really interesting to read. You have to debate Republicans, you have to read their books or read articles or something. The book, Taking the Heat, The President, the Press, and My Years in the White House. I really want to read that. Maybe there'll be an African American press secretary. How do you? There was an African American social secretary. So, I'm sorry. This is what happens. It's false. I didn't want to say that. They're definitely interesting. So, Taking the Heat, The President, the Press, and My Years in the White House by Ari Fleischer. Published by... Who? Who published it? Somebody published it. Oh, William Morrow. Great book. But also, I like when they have a recommendation of other books. So I'm reading the recommendation of other books probably because of me. Behind the Scenes, 30 Years a Slave and 4 Years in the White House by Elizabeth Keckley. That looks interesting. See, sometimes I don't really know. Sometimes you go to a bookstore and you see different... This is a Penguin classic. Maybe we'll read that. It says originally published in 1868 when it was attacked as an indecent book authored by a traitorous eavesdropper. Behind the Scenes is the stories of Elizabeth Keckley, who began her life as a slave and became a privileged witness to the presidency of Abraham Lincoln. Keckley brought her freedom at the age of 37 and set up a successful dressmaking business in Washington, D.C. She became the modiste to Mary Todd Lincoln. Y'all can see that in the museum. And in time, her friend and confidant and relationship that continued after Lincoln's assassination. There was a fashion museum in Harlem, and I think I saw her dress and the dress that former First Lady Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis Kennedy. Well, it wasn't Onassis after Kennedy. Was she Bouvier Kennedy Onassis? There was like a museum in Harlem, black fashion museum, and they had the dress, an African American design. Jacqueline Kennedy, what was her name? Anne something. And dress design, African American. We love the Kennedys, my mom and I. And it was her wedding dress that she designed. Ann Lowe. I apologize for that. Thank you, Washington Post, Google. So Ann Lowe, she designed Jackie Kennedy's fairy tale wedding dress. Oh gosh. The dress was really interesting. It has almost like a bow-tie neckline, not really, kind of like a V neckline almost, with Capulet sleeves, they say. And it's a 1953 wedding of Jacqueline Bouvier and then Senator John F. Kennedy. So it's a beautiful wedding dress, designed by Ann Lowe, African American. Remember to read about Penguin Classics, pardon me. We're waiting for Penguin Classics. That's a lot of Penguin Classics. So it's so interesting, Penguin Classics, The Senator and the Socialite by Lawrence Graham. Great book. But you know what? The first book, why is the title always... a lot of people love the book, I guess. I love my mother, and people who tortured her should go to prison. Lawrence Graham, he wrote about our kind of people inside America's black upper class. So that was an interesting book. And then he wrote The Original Black Elite. So Lawrence Graham, I read those books, but the book that he really wrote when he wrote about the black elite. He worked at a golf course and wrote about working at a golf course, and it was a really interesting book. Where's the book? Member of the club, Reflections on Life in a Racially Polarized World. I never met Mr. Lawrence Otis Grant, but there are other books about black elite, like The Black Fortunes, the story of the first 6 African Americans who survived slavery and became millionaires. Good book. And then there's a book by Mr. about the Black is the New Green. And then the editor, the writer of Black is the New Green. I met him somewhere in New York City. And I'm sorry, Mr. Burnett, and he started Uptown Magazine. So he started Uptown Magazine, and I met him, and he has Black is the New Green. Great book. Read it. It's called Marketing to Affluent African Americans. So if you like reading about marketing to African Americans, that's the book. Maeve Binchy, great book that she wrote. Let's talk about fashion. False. Let's talk about Simon & Schuster. And we'll talk about fashion. But today is an interesting day. So I got the information from the Encyclopedia Britannica about George H.W. Bush. They both have libraries, George H.W. Bush and George W. Bush. I want to have an event at George W. Bush Library. You know, I thought it was interesting. He had a lot of African Americans in his cabinet. W. Bush. So it's interesting that also today, Gregory Peck died. Actor Gregory Peck, he died in Los Angeles, and he was in the movie To Kill a Mockingbird, which was also a great book. And then, in 1898, the Philippines leader, Emilio Aguinaldo, declared its independence from Spain. There's a movie on Netflix about the Filipino leaders. It's a really good movie. So y'all can Google Philippines, and it shows you all the movies about the Philippines, and then pick a movie. And that's on Netflix. It's really interesting in that movie about the Philippines and gaining their independence from the Dutch and the Spanish. So Anne Frank, one of my favorite books is The Diary of Anne Frank. And Anne Frank was a Jewish girl who was locked in an attic with her father, her parents, and a boy and his parents. And just, can you imagine why people, just because of their religion or the way that they look, that they would lock them up and kill them? Some people are akin to Hitler, you know? But just like in America, corporate America, when you're dealing with people who don't like you, who try to persecute you, you still have to kind of smile and write a diary like Anne Frank. But unfortunately, you can read the novel. Also, David Rockefeller was born in this day. He was an American banker. Let's talk about the Rockefeller estate. I believe that you can visit one of the mansions here in New York. So David Rockefeller was born in 1915 and he died in 2017 in New York. He was a banker and a philanthropist. And this is all according to Britannica. He earned a PhD degree from University of Chicago. And it's interesting reading about people who work and who are nice and try to be philanthropists and help people. So it's interesting. I want to talk about Oklahoma City libraries. Thank y'all for telling me. Oklahoma City has so many interesting things. If there was a book that I have, about Black Americans and Native Americans. Books that I have about Black Americans and Native Americans in Oklahoma, in the state of Oklahoma. Great state to visit, they say. I've never been there, but I plan to go to Oklahoma. So after I met David Dinkins at my event at a library, David Dinkins has a book. So Mr. Mayor David Dinkins. I like to say Mr. Mayor David Dinkins. He teaches at Columbia, I think, or as the center at Columbia University. So, the Wall Street Journal wrote about his book, A Mayor's Life. So thank you, Mr. David Dinkins. And he had his little Brooklyn Dodgers cap, even though he's from Trenton, where the world makes. Trenton makes, the world takes bridge. It's great to ride SEPTA to Philadelphia. If you can't afford Amtrak's first class, go on SEPTA. Take SEPTA to New Jersey Transit, be there in a few hours, and it stops in Trenton. You have to switch trains, and then you see the bridge somewhere along there. And there was that song, Rock This Funky Joint. You wait a sec. And that was by the Righteous Teachers. And they showed that bridge in the video. So a book review, A Mayor's Life by David Dinkins. Interesting. You know, don't be rude and yell out rude things to people at events. That's what I learned in college. Don't yell out rude things. So anyway, sometimes it's interesting, sometimes people yell at you, you know? Don't try to murder people. That's too much stuff. So I guess from like the news anchors, they have producers talking to them frequently, so sometimes the script changes frequently. Okay? Right. So then we have Simon and Schuster. And they're gonna get me sued for playing this music. Buddy? I'm just joking. I have to pay for the music the mayor plays. But it's good music, so I shouldn't have to pay, right? Anyway, so now, as I talk about literature, and this is why I only socialize with people that like books, like my mom. Oh, so this is great. There was a book about the First Lady, The Art of Her Dear. And that's the First Lady Melania Trump. And Simon & Schuster has several books on meal planning. So those are new releases. Stephen King on writing. Stephen King, Pet Sematary, very scary book. Very scary. But he's a good writer. I could look at the new releases. Oh, there's a book. Lift as You Climb. It's a story of Ellis Baker by Patricia Herbie Powell. Herbie Powell? Oh, it's so great. Did y'all watch the CBS documentary about the Black Panthers? Stokely Carmichael and Huey. Do you really think they needed guns? Was it that necessary to use those AK-47s to help people with accepting or in the civil rights era? It's really interesting. It's really interesting, that debate between people who wanted a more peaceful protest, not that they weren't peaceful protesters, but just showing the AK-47s. Oh God, I don't know, you know? Did y'all read the biography about James Brown? The Last Orders of the Star and Sixpence. What should I read next? A Year at Castle Court. I like reading really interesting books. Like Sandra Kitt. She's an African-American romance novel writer. She's an author of novels. The Good Earth by Pearl S. Buck. This is a book that I want to read. I don't know if I read it. Did I read it? Maybe I read it. It's about traveling in China in the 1920s, a time when the last emperor still ruled, and about the changes that happened in China. I like reading about China's government. They had different dynasties in every era. So it's really interesting to read about the Chinese dynasties. I read about Confucius. It's so interesting. When I grew up in Rockland County, and ShopRite used to sell these books, and I bought a book about Confucius. And he's a really interesting author, Confucius. He's a really interesting philosopher. All of his ideas were really interesting, and that's Confucius. So they played a lot of the apparel and accessories of the Black Panther with their black berets, their black French berets, their leather jackets. It's a style that a lot of us still wear. Like, I have my Levi's black leather jacket. I don't know if I would ever hold an AK-47. People, I don't know about that. How do they initiate change? So it's interesting about different designers. Let's talk about Gucci. So Gucci, Balenciaga, Bottega Veneta, and Saint Laurent are great brands. I actually met the CEO of the company that manages these designers at a Gordon Parks event. Isn't that great? The Learning Tree by Gordon Parks. He was an author. He was a director, and there are different books about Gordon Parks. So my mom loves reading. We love reading. We watch that. We love reading and things like that. So it's really interesting. That documentary about the Black Panthers. And there is a book, Eyes on the Prize, about the civil rights movement that also talks about the Black Panthers. So that book is in the 970s. I always wanted to read that book, and I think I read part of it. But I watched the documentary, and a lot of libraries have that documentary. Eyes on the Prize. Julian Bond was talking about the Black Panthers in that documentary. Mr. Bond. I never met Mr. Bond, but I saw him speak at the NAACP. I understand now, Mr. Bond. I understand. Just a little debate that I had with Mr. Bond, an imaginary debate. and then I wondered things, but he was an attorney, and other people. This is why I wanted to be an attorney. He was an attorney, and it's really interesting. Let's talk about those designers. So we'll talk about those designers. I'm trying to go through things on my internet. At Bloomingdale's, let's talk about the designers. At Bloomingdale's, a lot of designers like Dior, Etro, Fendi, Da Vinci, Gucci, Louis Vuitton, Jason Wu, Michael Kors, Oscar de la Renta, Pablo Gurung, and Prada. These are designers that are sold at Bloomingdale's. Hallelujah to Bloomingdale's and shopping. Do we need some type of civil rights in Australia? Or it's just interesting. Reading the newspaper in Australia. I guess civil rights would be a great way for a lot more African Americans to travel to Australia. It might help the Aboriginal community in Australia earn money. So thank you, Bloomingdale's. I may be a publisher for Bloomingdale's. Thank you, Bloomingdale's. Amazing store at the shops at Riverside in Hackensack, New Jersey. Beautiful mall. Beautiful bookstore. Barnes & Nobles is there. Big Barnes & Nobles. Large. Very large Barnes & Nobles. So I love going there, looking at Bloomingdale's clothes, purchasing things at Bloomingdale's. Remember, Bloomingdale's has a lot of power. And I want to talk about a lot of things. I really want to read this book, Good Earth, again. Harper's book. Thank you, Signing Issues Store. I read this, I shoved this book out the library. I still haven't chose a book to read, a classic. So when I'm at the books, I'm like, which one should I buy? Because if you buy a book, it's like, what? So like at the library, you just have to choose a book, yeah. So I Googled, don't y'all like Goodreads? I love Goodreads because you can pick a book. You can have, you can say that you've read the book. You can say that you want to read the book or that you're reading the book. And then your friends have accounts. So it's a great book, Goodreads. So let me talk about my friends. Most of my friends have companies or work for great companies, all because we attended college or did well in high school, or people that worked hard and didn't commit crime. So let's talk about my friend Danielle. She has a feastonhistory.com. So I am a member of the press. So I think she spoke at the New York Times travel show. Danielle, Feast on History now. Do I have the right one to say? Hey, Danielle. So she has three cultural tours via Zoom hosted by Danielle, and talks and tours include why ancient Paxum was like a day at Burning Man, a walk through La Regia di Caserta, the palace built to rival Versailles, and a tour of Elena Ferrante's Naples. So, oh, this is so interesting. So Danielle, she worked at the Met Closters for 15 years. So 15 years, I know, really, and taught art history at Seton Hall University. And she's also a food and travel writer with bylines in BBC Travel, Condé Nast Traveler, Gothamist, great website, Gothamist, Metropolitan Museum of Art's blog. I didn't read that one. And Roads and Kingdoms. And I thought she was in the New Yorker. Was she on the cover of the New Yorker? Is that a fake cover? I'm sorry. Oh, so you know what? Definitely my mom and I, she has a virtual South Italy vacation tour, but she has real tours usually. Cooking lessons, wine classes only, and art history classes. And she has tours in the Bronx. So let me tell you, Mr. Reverend Honorable, the Honorable Mr. Reverend Diaz, Ruben Diaz, in the Bronx. He's a representative from the Bronx. He's a councilman from the Bronx. He emails me all the time. I wonder if he's been on the Bronx tour. So I think, did she have a Bronx tour? Oh, maybe that was just like for friends. Oh, okay. That's feastonhistory.com. So it's great. Daniel and I attended the same high school. And so we went to a really excellent high school. So isn't it a blessing that we try to like have events for people to know what we learn? So, yo, this is interesting. Oh, prayerfully in October 2024, the Food and Wine Immersive. Immerse yourself in Salento, countryside and coast, when the trees are heavy with ripe olives. Ooh, learn to cook, see the ruins at Pansum, sail on the Amalfi Coast, explore meaningful villages, and taste the very best food and wine of the fall season. Oh, I like wine. Red wine, white wine. Not a lot of wine. 2 glasses. Then I need to stop. So that's my friend Danielle. It's so interesting. Danielle and I both were people who worked in as writers in high school. I know Danielle and I worked on the yearbook together, and she was my supervisor. I actually sold ads for the yearbook too. So that's sort of my advertising, selling all types of Girl Scout cookies, advertisements in the yearbook, you know, selling books for Scholastic, winning those headphones. So I've been selling. So everyone knows that. So thank you, Danielle. Feast on History. I pray to be able to attend this in October. Oh, I can put this in my calendar. Oh, this is great. So I can share it. Oh, so this has, I like when websites have a calendar app where you can share it and put it right down in your Google Calendar. You don't have to type. But you know what? I always need it, like, I just need a reminder. And that's what they have. So they have a reminder. Oh, make it a Zoom meeting. That's interesting.
Good morning, everybody.
Oh, let's start.
This story is going to be told for generations. The story of 100 days in the history of New York City, when New Yorkers were faced with a literally almost unbelievable challenge, something we could not conceive of happening in this city. But when it did, New Yorkers found a way to fight back. It was asking so much of the people of the city to change their lives fundamentally and change them quickly, and yet you did it. In a matter of days, we went from being one of the most
the mayor's talking, I was talking about books, just listening and talking. I used to work at elementary school on my school newspaper.
To shelter in place, to socially distance. put on those face coverings, all the
And then I
things that
started,
we now
I wasn't able to get a job
that we see as part of our daily routine.
on
Took a
Temple
lot to learn
University's
them and to do
campus
them, and yet
for the
you
school
did.
newspaper or at the radio
So
station.
for 100
I didn't have
days,
any
we
time because I
fought
was interning
back
and
this
working.
disease.
I worked at the DA's office and I
And in the
interned
middle of that, it looked like it might
at a women's law
surge
project.
beyond anything we could
And
possibly imagine. And yet,
that's
because of
what I
what
interned.
you did, the disease
I think I worked at a record store
was
too.
stopped and
I
then
love
pushed
music.
back. We got a long way to go.
So we actually sold record CDs and cassettes.
Very careful. And the danger
And Barnes
this
and Noble
disease
sells a record
resurging,
store.
the danger of the boomerang, the danger we're seeing playing out right now in states in this country that tragically, I think, move too fast without the right precautions.
So I have to kind of talk over
We're seeing people suffer. We're
the
seeing
mayor. I
people die.
apologize. Prayerfully, I'll be able
Here
to
in
have
this
enough
city, we have
advertisements
resolved
to
do
travel
this
to New York City
in a smart way,
and,
careful way.
and
The results of each day speak
listen
for themselves. What you
to
have
the
achieved
conference
and how we're going to sustain it.
really
And
show
now,
you more about
another
Gracie
mission to
Mansion
restart the city, to bring people's livelihoods
and New
back,
York City.
to help folks who don't have money right now for food or rent or medicine to get their jobs back, but we can all move forward.
Pearl's book,
Greatest
Buck,
city in the world.
I was
So,
an author. I was born in
we now start
1892,
phase one.
and she wrote about the
It's not
tragedy of the
easy, it's
Chinese
also the
peasant
great
farmer
unknown, and yet,
Wang
the
Long
news
and
I
his
have
family.
for you today is overwhelmingly good news. About how New Yorkers have found a way to make phase one work.
In your
It's
New York
initial.
Times,
We
and
know
it's not an anthology.
a lot of people are still watching and waiting.
Almanac, not an atlas, an almanac.
Not every business that could have been opened
So
by
an
now
almanac
is.
has a
But we're
map,
seeing
but
more and more
Atlas
businesses
has
reopening, more and more
Atlas
people
is a
coming
book
back to
of
work,
maps.
more
An
and more people
almanac is
deciding
about facts.
that they can
It's
make
like
it work and make it work safely.
a really
One of the
great
ways that
thing.
we judge what's going on
And
is
that
by
book is on
the
there. It
heartbeat
tells you
of
all
the
the
city, and
books,
that's mass transit.
best-selling
Our
books
subways, our buses,
from
this is the greatest
maybe
mass transit
1900s.
city in America, one of the great
It's really
mass
great.
transit cities in the world.
Almanac.
And we know that mass transit
New
has
York Times
struggled
Almanac.
in the middle of this
Still
crisis,
looking at books.
and people have been concerned, they've been
I'm
worried,
pretty sure so.
understandably so. There's a lot that has been done and a lot more that needs to be done to give people faith that they
And
can come
Sophia
back to
Kinsella,
mass
she's a
transit.
British author. I like
But
reading
as per
her
usual,
books, too.
New Yorkers are voting with their feet. New Yorkers
And
are
they have the
making
book
their own decisions.
Shopaholic.
You're showing the strength and
I may be a
resiliency that we
shopaholic.
know is so much a part of the core of life
Which is
in
why
the
I like
city.
reading her book. Like these
So
books
subway
from Simon &
ridership
Schuster,
now,
like Poppy's Recipe for
Wednesday,
Life,
2 days ago,
Heidi
up
Swain,
25%
you know,
compared to
the
Wednesday
Cherry Tree
before.
Cafe.
Bus
Just kind of
ridership
like
up
books
23%
that are
2
funny,
days ago Wednesday
that have a
compared
lot
to
of
the week before. Staten Island
funny
Ferry ridership up
things.
31%.
Staten Island Ferry ridership is
That's
up
mass transit.
31%.
Now, people
Great to
are
ride the
obviously
Staten
also
Island
coming
Ferry.
into the city
It's
with
about an
trucks,
hour or
with
so.
cars.
If it's not rush
And we've
hour,
talked about the
usually
fact
the
we
boat
understand
doesn't
that
have a
will
lot of
happen
people,
in
and you
the
can
short
ride on
term.
the
We look
ferry.
forward to
It has a view of the
continuing
Statue of Liberty
intensely our efforts to
and of Staten
reorient
Island
the
and
entire
Manhattan.
city to mass
Beautiful,
transit. The
beautiful,
announcement I made a few
beautiful,
days ago about
beautiful.
more
I
bus
think I
service
rode
and busways
on it.
is going to be a big part of how we move forward
I
in the
think
future.
I rode on it, but I
you
think
do
I
need to
I
look
was
at
at
traffic coming
the
into
station,
Manhattan as a
and it
measure
just
of
it's
people's
beautiful
willingness to come
station
back to
in
work
Staten Island.
and to
I
reopen
think I want to
businesses.
be from
East
Staten
River
Island.
Bridges, an increase of 17% over the course of a
They're
week.
so
Harlem
nice.
River Bridges, an increase of 14%.
Add Google Meet video
Working
conferencing.
people are coming
Is
back
it a
to work.
video
Most
conference?
importantly, we must make sure it's done safely. We must protect their health. The social distancing standards are crucial. So on our own ferries, Staten Island Ferry, you're going to see that
I'm
social
literally
distancing. You're going to see it marked to show
marking
people
this.
where to sit, where not to sit. The face coverings are being given out for free at the ferries, at the subways, at the buses. We're working closely, whether it's our own efforts to make sure people are safe in the transportation run by the city of New York or with the MTA run by the state. We're working closely together to keep these really foundational concepts moving, that we have to constantly give out those face coverings, constantly educate people, constantly help show people the safe way to do things. Now I ask every New Yorker, because this has always been a participatory reality. We got safer and healthier because of what you did. Keep doing it. When you're out in public, observe those standards and help others too as well. Now, Our job is to help working people get back to work. Our job is to keep working people safe and healthy. Our job is to help businesses back on their feet. And we know that's particularly true with small businesses. They've borne the brunt of this crisis. They are the heart and soul of our neighborhoods. We have to do special things to help small businesses. Small businesses, mom and pop stores, multi-generational stores make New York, New York. They are who we are. We have to protect them and help them.
Start your own business in New York City. You know, it's all right if it doesn't last forever. Start it for a few years, a few weeks. Have a pop-up store. Lease a space. Sell and make and produce products and services.
Unlock economic potential and
It's
create economic
legal products
security
and
for all New
services.
Yorkers by connecting New Yorkers to good jobs, creating stronger businesses, and building thriving neighborhoods across the 5 boroughs. Aside from supporting the small business community with access to financing, technical assistance programs, and training, we also oversee the city's 18 Workforce One centers. Annually, we serve over 1,000 New Yorkers, connecting them to training high-quality jobs and careers. 100,000 New Yorkers. We are currently working with over 300 employers to source 4,000 essential workers during this crisis. We partner with the Food Czar to establish a workforce development program that is specifically targeted toward essential businesses, including grocers. We are working with hospitals and nursing homes to provide support in filling urgent staffing needs. Last week, the mayor announced the emergency grant program in which we established for those who've been vandalized or looted during the last few weeks. The grant focused on MWBEs and mom and pop shops with less than $1.5 million in annual revenue.
The MWBE is very in New York City. It's free to register for as a minority in business or home enterprise. I don't think. I think that you need to pay if you live outside of New York City.
75 businesses bring our total now to $1.25 million for grants. This will help at least 125 impacted businesses in all 5 boroughs, with recovery including repairs, security systems, locks, and more. Thank you, Signature Bank, and thanks to the Mayor's Fund for your commitment to small businesses. Throughout the pandemic and since Phase 1 reopening, I have visited businesses in every borough. I was in Staten Island yesterday, and I'm heading out to the Bronx again today. We know that New York City needs business, and our small businesses are tough, resilient, and are looking forward to coming back. I've heard firsthand there is real optimism out there. They're real sensible. Yet we understand that the challenges of reopening for some of our small businesses are real. SBS has rolled out resources to help small businesses during this time to recover and to reopen. From the onset of the pandemic, we quickly launched several resources to help reopen small businesses and provide the necessary guidance and support they need. Our first job was to educate and help our small businesses understand the reopening process and get them ready to come back. As of today, we've launched educational webinars and trainings. We have connected small businesses to over $65 million in financial assistance. Our hotline has received over 6,000 calls so far for reopening guidance, financial assistance, and PPE. 334,000 guidance documents have been distributed to businesses. We are translating that into also 10 languages. 1.84 million
the state of New
face
York,
coverings distributed
their
to small
Minority and
businesses
Women-Owned
from
Business
72 partners
Enterprises
across the city,
Certification
and we will
Campaign.
hit the 2 million mark
And Governor
keep
Cuomo
going.
launched the
If you are a
MWBE
business
certification
and need
campaign
support, please
to
visit us at
encourage people to
nyc.gov/business
open up their business,
or
especially
our hotline
minority and women-owned businesses,
SBS4NYC,
and to certify with the state and take advantage of current and upcoming state procurement opportunities and billions of dollars in state procurement opportunities.
Thank you so
Under the
much.
governor's leadership, the state
I wanna
certified
say
more
to
than
help you and
4,300
everyone at Small
MWBEs.
Business Services. You were all doing such important work before the pandemic, and now is a time when everyone at Small Business Services is doing absolutely crucial work for this city. Small businesses needed the help before the pandemic. We talked about it in the State of the City address, how small businesses are our heart and soul in this city. but they have suffered a lot. The realities of today's economy, we needed to help them then. We need to help them even more now. And Commissioner Janelle Dorris and everyone at Small Business Services is really stepping up. So thank you very, very much for the extraordinary efforts. And I want to thank all of the city agencies that are doing the work this week to help businesses back on their feet, help them get the answers
There are
they need,
several
help them
city
move forward.
agencies that help people
Huge amount of
with
work done
business.
by the building
So
department,
if you
Department
travel to
of Worker
NYC.gov,
Protection,
if
so
you want
many
to start your
agencies are
own
playing a role
business
in this restart. And I want to give
in,
you a
in
fact
New
that I
York
think
City,
is quite striking. You know, we said a few days ago, the goal would be for city agencies to go out and educate, help make sure small businesses,
you know,
and
it's
you
good
and all
to
businesses do
good
what
to
they need
ask
to
people
get started,
for
help make sure it was
assistance,
safe and
like the
healthy,
business and
getting those free
consumers.
face coverings, but obviously to make
There's
sure
a
that
lot
the
of
rules are being followed.
information
And we
on the
had a
website about
huge amount of
businesses.
activity in
There's
terms
the
of
NYC
inspections
Business
just in these
Portal,
first days
the
of
ultimate
restart.
resource for
Total
NYC
inspections
businesses,
now,
regulation and incentive information.
15,755 work sites have been inspected. I want to give you the good news. Over 15,000 of those, so the vast, vast majority, 100% on track, doing exactly what we need to do for the health and safety of their workers moving forward. 3% only needed a warning or some education on something they needed to fix, and that is being fixed. Again, our goal is not
On
to
the
give
site
fines.
on NYC.gov, you can find out how to apply for and renew your business license, check the status of applications, learn what's required to operate a business in the city, learn how to avoid common violations, check a status or make a payment for certain violations, licenses, and permits, find business regulations, and get help in starting and operating your
The restart is
business.
heating up, but something else is
And they
heating
have
up,
business
and that
tax
is the
assistance
weather.
for
We can
technical
all
help with
feel
DOS
that hot summer
services
ahead.
system,
We
and
talked
Department of
about the
Consumer
fact that
Affairs
we
online
have to get
licensing for
ahead
assistance
of
with
the hot
online
weather,
payment issues
protect New
such
Yorkers,
as free
particularly those most
miscalculation,
vulnerable from what Mother
miscalculations,
Nature may have in
fee
store for
miscalculations.
us.
I'm sorry, not free.
We have to
And
particularly
then they have
focus
the
on our
NYC
seniors.
Small
Our
Business
seniors are
Support
borne the
Center.
brunt in the coronavirus crisis, and particularly seniors who have not had enough health care in their
So
life.
the New York
Because
Public
healthcare, again,
Library
tragically, is distributed in this
is a
country
great
according to
library
income,
system.
not according
And
to
remember,
need.
if you live outside
Another
of New
reminder
York
why we
City,
need universal
if you
health
go
care
to one
in
of the
this
branches
country.
in
So
New
many
York
seniors
City,
have gone a lifetime
you
without
may be
all
able
the
to
health
get
care
a
they
library
deserve. So
card.
many seniors who are lower income are suffering right now. We need to make sure they are protected against
Don't go to the main branch,
ahead.
but you may be able to
So
get a library card
we have a
because the
program
New York
we
Public
launched
Library is the New
weeks
York
ago
Public
called
Library,
Get
not the
Cool
New York City
NYC.
Public
The idea
Library.
to Get Cool NYC is to focus on those who are most vulnerable, make sure they are safe, make sure they're kept cool, even with some of the challenges of the coronavirus, even with some of the adjustments we've had to make. Some new approaches, make sure our seniors are safe.
The
So,
Science, Industry, and
first
Business
of all,
Library
most
is
important
on 34th
piece of
Street
this
and
is
Madison
giving out
Avenue.
74,000 free air conditioning units to low-income seniors.
It's an excellent
And
library. It has a
focus
lot of
particularly
business
on low-income
books.
seniors
It's
in public
a library
housing.
that I've
About a
actually
third
been to.
of
It's a
those
beautiful
donations will
library,
go to low-income
and they have
seniors who live
webinar
in
strategies for
night
enhancing job searches,
Right now,
webinar social
we've
media
been
secrets to
outreach
stand
to
out from your
approximately
competition. But really, they have
180,000
business
seniors
librarians and
to find
video
out
consultation.
who needs these
It's
air
on June
conditioners.
15th.
25,000
It's really interesting. You can start your own business and look for employment.
Keep going from there.
And it's like a client.
4,000 units
So
installed already.
looking for
More
clients
going
and
each day. The goal is to be able to
writing a
install
business plan. They have
1,500
library
air
resources
conditioners
about that.
each day and have all 74,000 installed by the end of July. We are confident we can meet that goal. Now, the Public Service Commission. I'm sorry, started July. I misspoke. My apologies. Started July. End of June. Started
It's
July.
good to
My
have a
apologies.
business plan,
The Public Service Commission
and
is
a
the
lot of banks
Public
have
Service
templates
Commission.
for business plans.
We reached out to them and sent
So this is a
particular
great
request to them
library.
asking
It's
help
like the
with
Schomburg Library. They have a lot of
low-income
different
New
types of
Yorkers who have to
libraries
pay their
in
energy bills
the
over
New
the
York Public
summer
Library system.
as the hot
And
weather is
great
coming.
programs.
We want people to be able to afford that air conditioning. It's one thing to have the air conditioning unit, you have to be able to afford it as well. The State Public Service Commission has come through, and I want to thank them. It's a big deal. They're going to double the current commitment for subsidizing the energy bills of low-income New Yorkers. So almost 440,000 New York City families will benefit because of this decision by the State Public Service Commission.
So there are
And the average
research
savings per
libraries
customer will be about $140
in
this summer. That's
the
for a
New
lot
York
of families in this city, a lot of money.
New
So
York
a big
Public
step forward,
Library.
thanks to the PSC.
They have the
for
New
this
York Public Library
really
for Performing
important
Arts,
helping
Dorothy
hand.
and Louis B. Coleman Center
All right, I
on
want to turn to
65th
a
Street and
different
Columbus
topic
Avenue.
that is very much
And
relevant
the
to what
Science
we've
Industry
done,
and Business
all of us,
Library.
fighting the coronavirus. And a reminder, as we restart, we're going to make sure that the parts of our lives
And the Schomburg
that
Center
really
for
determine
Research and
our
Black
future
Culture.
are
Excellent
protected.
programs
That
at
means
this
voting.
place. Amazing
You
programs,
know,
all I want
it's
to
been a
say.
tough, complicated time. But one thing we know in a democracy is it's so important to keep
Ow.
the democratic process strong and moving no matter what's thrown at us. That's been the history of this city and this country. So
It should be
I wanna
illegal to
remind
do
people
this,
how
and someone
important
actually
it
forced me to
is
say someone's name
voting.
that
In fact, in
said
time of
bad
crisis,
things about my
it's more
mother.
important than voting.
So it's
Okay, you have
important
5
to just
days left to
ignore people.
request an absentee ballot. And remember, any eligible voter can vote by mail now. It's not like it used to be with absentee ballots where you had to, prove you're going to be out of town or you could not get out of your apartment or something like that. Anyone, everyone is welcome to send
You
in an
forced me to say
application
their name, even
for
though
an
they may have said
absentee
bad
ballot to
things
basically
about my
vote by
mother.
mail, as is done in many parts of the country already. So you have until next Tuesday to submit that request, get an application. You go to
The Schomburg Center has an art and
NYC
artifacts division.
Vote.
It has a
NYC 866
different
vote
reference
NYC.
divisions, different manuscripts,
June 23rd
archives,
is
and
the
rare
primary
books,
election day.
photographs, and print,
And if you
moving
need any more
images, and
information, go
recording
to
sound division.
vote.nyc and you
And
can
it has
get
a
all the
bookstore.
information you need. And the most important thing is to make your voice
And
heard.
so I've been there during the Harlem.
Okay, we will now wrap up with our healthcare indicators. And I want to just frame this by saying we all understand that the restart means more and more people in close proximity. Phase 1 means a lot. Phase 2 means even more. The central concern that I have, I know that the governor has, and the
There's a
state has
sound that
as
you
well,
all hear.
is
It's
to
my
watch
laptop.
every
I
day
apologize
to
for
make
that
sure that
sound.
as we have more activity, there is not a resurgence of this disease.
So online,
This is
July
what we think
18th
about
and 19th,
every single
the
day. We
2020
watch
Harlem
the
Book Fair.
indicators constantly to see if we see any evidence of a challenge or problem. If we do, we're going to talk about it out loud. We're going to remind people about what we need to do to fight it
And
back.
they'll have panel discussions
There's
and
3 indicators we
authors.
go over each day.
and,
2 are particularly
maybe you
sensitive
can
in the
pay to
sense that they
promote
will
your
show
book.
us most quickly what's going on out there and if we have to make adjustments.
And the Brooklyn
Of course,
Library also has a
hospital
book fair.
admissions
Queens, they have
for
library.
those respiratory
Hello, ladies
symptoms,
from
that
Queens.
is a very clear and immediate
Usually I
indicator.
see
And most
them
obviously, the percentage of people
different
testing
events.
positive for COVID-19 citywide, that's the most universal of
There
all.
are a
So
lot
we're
of
watching.
librarians,
We
African
have 3
American
indicators, but 2
librarians that
are
work for
particularly
the
sensitive
New
and
York
tell
Public
us in
Library
real
System
time
and the Brooklyn
what's going
Libraries.
on.
And the Queens
Uh,
Library.
What we're happy to say is over this last period of time, as we've been ready for the restart and now begun to restart, we've seen actually steady progress on our indicators. But the big test comes later in the month as we start to see the impact of so many people being closer together. Remember, it takes time for this disease to be spread. It takes time for it to manifest. We're not going to see it instantly if there is a
I think it's a
resurgence.
book
We will
fair in
see it in
Brooklyn
the
every
second
year.
half of
I
the
haven't
month.
been to that book
So we're
fair.
watching every day. But here's
I think my
today's report,
friend
and
wrote
this
a
is
book.
another good
I
news
feel
report.
like she wrote a
And
book.
again, thanks to all of you. Indicator number
She's
1,
my
the number of
college
people admitted
roommate.
to hospitals for suspected COVID-19. Again, threshold of 200. Today's report, 70 patients. And I'm going to note, we'll talk about this further, that the more research we do, the more we're finding a lot of those patients, thank God, are not
And the
COVID
book is
patients,
available
even
on
if they
Amazon.
present with COVID-like symptoms. So we'll keep
She wrote
getting
a
more and
book
more
with several
information on
other
that
authors.
going forward. But overall, that number 70, well within our threshold.
Hey, you
Number
know,
2,
life
the
is
number of
life.
people in health and hospitals, ICUs. That's right, 375. The number today, 339. And then the percentage of people tested positive for COVID-19 citywide, 3% again. Been around that number for many days, and that's a very good sign. A few
Oh,
words in
God.
Spanish as we wrap up.
It's about
Gracias
resiliency.
a los neoyorquinos, hemos visto buenas señales en esta primera semana de reinicio. Necesitamos que
Sophia,
todos
she's
los
my roommate.
neoyorquinos
I mean, she's my
sigan
apartment mate.
tomando medidas de seguridad para vencer a este virus. Si tenemos un reinicio seguro, vamos a poder seguir hacia la próxima fase. With that, we turn to our colleagues in the media. Please let me know the name and outlet of each journalist.
Hi all. Just a reminder that we have Small Business Commissioner Doris here in person. And on the phone we have Deputy Mayor Bean, President and CEO of Health and Hospitals, Dr. Katz, Emergency Management Commissioner Criswell,
But being
Senior
nice to
Advisor
people really
Dr.
helps
Varma,
people.
Deputy Commissioner for Traffic Management and Planning, Beaton, and Senior Advisor
So
and
yeah,
General
I'm very
Counsel
nice to
for
people,
Democracy
even if they're mean
NYC,
to my
Wood.
mother and I,
With
just
that,
because some
I
people
will
are
start with
violent
Samantha from
or
1010
not,
News.
or verbally violent, or can destroy your life or career.
Samantha, are you there?
So that's what I call my corporate
Can you hear us?
smile. Even if someone says something really bad about you,
Samantha,
sometimes
we'll
you just have to smile
Let
and
me try
wait
one more time.
so that you
Samantha,
can
can you
completely
hear us?
ignore them. Or just
I
so
want
that someone
to
can stop
encourage
their over
all
bullying.
our colleagues in the media, please, if you can call from a hard line, or please do, or if you can make sure you're in good cell range, it really, really helps all of us. But Samantha, one more time, can you hear us?
So the book
All right, we'll
is
come back to
titled
Samantha.
Brokenness, Baggage, and
All right,
Blessings.
next we'll go to Yoav from the city.
And
Hi everyone. I wanted to ask about the selection of
purchased the
James
book.
Johnson to lead the independent review
no, I don't owe
potential
anybody money,
NYPD
but,
misconduct in responding
kids
to the protest.
read about this book.
In
I'm
his
sorry,
role
Althea
as court
Bates.
counsel, if there are lawsuits filed against NYPD,
I knew her before she was Althea Bates.
he would be the official
And brokenness,
court
baggage,
counsel
and
for law
blessings.
department in
Brokenness,
defending the city against
Baggage,
those
and Blessing
lawsuits.
is the anthology of 5
so how
expert
can we
co-author
possibly
stories
do
of womenpreneurs
an independent
sharing their
review without a
resiliency
conflict of
encounters.
interest? At any point, potential misconduct that he then, in his role as court counsel, would have
But
to
at the same
defend
time, I can have a corporate
the
smile for the
NYPD
police.
again.
Because
Yoav, I appreciate the
it's
question.
really rude
Obviously,
to harass
making the
people
selection,
through
I was familiar with the
civil
role the law department plays, but
So,
I'm also familiar
sometimes
with
people who
Jim
help you in the
Johnson and
past
his
can
history.
hurt you
He
and
has
try to
done
murder you.
independent
Or
reviews
you were nice to them until you
related to
escaped.
civil rights, law
So the
enforcement.
book is by
Previously,
Althea
he has
Bates
worked
and
within law
others.
enforcement. He's
Brokenness,
worked
Baggage, Blessings, an
monitoring
anthology
government. He's
of
done a lot of
resiliency.
different things that make him powerfully suited to
This
this
is a great
role.
cover.
I have no doubt he can
It was
maintain his independence and set
Althea.
whatever appropriate boundaries.
My apartment meet at Temple
Constantly remember
University.
that it is also the Department of Investigation and Commissioner Marvin Garnett will be doing their review, and I have no doubt about the independence of that review as well. So I think we are bringing in capacity from two leaders who as individuals bring so much to the table, two departments that bring a lot to the table. I want the whole truth. You know, I've made very clear to both of them, go wherever the facts lead.
I have TV shows
I
like
am not
The Oval.
worried about any question of liability. I want the truth, and they both understand that. I'm convinced that they are well
Go
suited
down
to
the
get us.
movies and watch them. Watch them on
Thanks. Just
You have
to
a
follow
movie,
up, you addressed
TV
kind of
downloads, A
the
Taste of South
independent,
Africa. This is
aspect
an
of it,
Amazon.
but not the inherent
too long.
conflict of interest there. Why would,
These are
as an
movies. I haven't watched them
investigator,
yet. I haven't watched A
why
Taste
would
of
he
South Africa
point
yet.
to potential failings of an agency that he then is responsible for protecting in court? And
That's
just
Althea
to add a little
Bates.
bit to that is the
Colin
OIG and NYPD also involved in this investigation?
You can talk to the Department of Investigation about how they are going to structure it, but absolutely the IG for the NYPD will be involved. And again, I'm just convinced, knowing Jim Johnson, knowing his history, understanding what he brings to the table, is so important from my point of view for the people of this city.
Now the mayor,
For him to be
the
involved in finding out
governor.
what the truth is. Again, the conflict exists if there's any desire not to portray the truth and act on it. Again, we want the whole truth, and we're not concerned about the liability issues. We want to figure out what exactly happened and what to do about it. And Jim has so much history acting on that very question in other settings, and he's been very, very effective doing it. And again, DOI right there always providing another element to the equation and a clearly effective independent element. I think it's a good combination that will get us where we need to go.
Next we have Julia from the Post.
Hey, happy Friday, Mr. Mayor.
Friday.
Two questions for you. The first one, you praised Chief of Department Terrence Monahan for taking a knee with protesters. Now we have
thank the mayor
NYPD
for
Lieutenant Robert
that.
Patani,
There's a
who
Brooklyn
wrote that
Book
he
Festival.
regrets
You
his
can learn
quote,
more about the Brooklyn
horrible
Festival.
decision to give in to a crowd of
Brooklyn Book
protester
Festival,
demands and perform the
BrooklynBookFestival.org. I
symbolic
think.
pose.
Sorry,
At
Althea.
the same time,
Althea
he said he
appeared
still
at that
condemned
event.
the actions of the former
I wasn't able
Minneapolis
to
cop
attend.
accused of killing George Floyd. Just wondering what your response is to his retraction.
I don't know him. I appreciate that he condemned the killing of George Floyd. I think every police officer in America should condemn the murder of George Floyd because it represents something that has nothing to do with the oath that police officers take. I don't know the lieutenant, but what I know is the chief of department, Terry Monahan.
It's a really fun show. It's about literature, it's about music, I dance, I love dancing. I even took classes at the Alvin Ailey class
in the largest,
school.
most prestigious police force in the United States.
It's a
of
good
America.
school,
He chose to take a knee after
and
making
you
a
can
very
pay to
powerful
attend
speech.
classes.
Anyone
There's
that's
a
heard
school
it,
that the professional dancers go
talking
attend,
about how we
and then there's a
all
class.
together, we need to
There's
solve
this
our
other
problems
school.
together, and there's
to be
no
back in New
police
York
who
Metro
should ever accept
Dr.
the kind of
So
thing that
that's,
happened in Minnesota. He took the knee
thank
to show people that he respected and
the
heard their
mayor
voices.
of New
And the
York for
crowd
talking
responded in kind at that point and dispersed
Your
what was a tense
hospitality
situation. So I want to give a lot
about
of respect
businesses.
to
He's
Terry
really about
Monahan for what he did.
businesses, about all
To my
types
right is
I
of.
don't know,
Howard Zucker,
Lieutenant, I
who's
don't know
our
what
great health commissioner, who's been doing an extraordinary job under
he
very
feels,
difficult
but I want to go back to
circumstances.
the
my left,
beginning of your question. The person
we have
who is the
Melissa
highest
DeRose,
ranking
who's
member of the
secretary,
department did something
to
he's
the
very
governor.
And
important.
the Governor
Great,
Cuomo
thanks.
Let's
And
speaking.
then my
talk about
second
where we
question
are
is on a
today.
different
Yeah,
topic.
I wanted to
One of my
listen to
colleagues
101
asked last week whether
dealing
you
with the coronavirus. Yesterday was day 100, and it's a time worth pausing to.
As we go to Rivers, we'll be listening. Thank God with cell phones and tablets, we'll be able to listen to the city of the mayors and the governors. So we listen to different mayors and governors talk.
Day 101.
It's great that there's
101 days
captioning
from our first case, and it's been a long 101
on
days.
YouTube.
But it's also been extraordinary in many ways, and the progress that has been made. If you had told me 100 days ago that we would be reopening,
Let's pray for the people in Arizona.
I would say that
There's a
would be
wildfire
the
burning in
best
Arizona near
scenario.
Tucson.
And it only happened because many people did really great service.
Or Tucson.
Today's day 16 of the civil unrest after Mr. Floyd's murder. And our
I'm not
thoughts and
cooking
prayers are
today.
with you today.
Just
We're dealing with two separate situations.
we're gonna cook maybe
The
outside. We're gonna
COVID
barbecue
virus
with like
and the
cooks
civil
and chefs.
unrest,
So it's going to be a
after
great
Mr.
show.
Floyd's murder.
Shows that we
They are
have. Sometimes
separate.
we film
They have to be
daily.
dealt with
Sometimes we don't.
separately. There's obviously also an intersection between the two.
Or 5 times a
The
week. That makes sense.
protests also cause a complication on dealing with the COVID virus. So it's a complex situation, but we're dealing with it. On the civic unrest, on Mr. Floyd's death, we go back to.
There was also a
Representative
documentary
John Lewis,
on
who I had the
Mr. John
pleasure of
Lewis
working
last
with
night,
when I was in
too.
Washington. It was
And I watched
a legendary
Yeah.
and historic civil rights leader. Talk is fine, discussion is fine, but we must respond, we must act. And that's true.
Talk is fine, discussion is fine, but we must respond, we must act, said Governor Andrew
It's time
Cuomo
for New York
about,
to
and that's a
be
quote
the
he
place
just
that
said
leads.
about,
That's
he
New York
just
State at its best. That's New York State's
said
legacy,
from
right?
Representative John Lewis.
This is the progressive capital of the nation. You look back in history when there was a time of unrest, when there were issues, when there were problems, what government actually stepped up and acted and provided an example of action? That was New York State, time and time again. And New York State is going to do it in this situation. We're going to pass the most aggressive reforms in the
So
country.
we Temple University people, we love New
Transparency
York.
of disciplinary records, banning chokeholds, giving
Governor
the Attorney
Cuomo says he
General
will
authority as a special prosecutor.
Pass the most aggressive reforms, transparency of
punishing
disciplinary
false race-based,
records,
not
50-A, ban chokeholds,
This
Attorney
is,
General
these
as
are issues
special
that we've been
prosecutor,
talking
false
about for a long
race
time.
based
And the time has
911
come
report
for dramatic
prohibited.
action, and we're taking it right now. I want to applaud the legislative leaders. Senator Andrea Stewart Cousins, right here from Westchester County. Speaker Carl Heastie. These are tough issues, and we've been working through them in a cooperative and expeditious manner, and bills are being passed as we speak. As soon as the bills are passed, I will sign them into law, hopefully this week. So we're making progress. We're making progress quickly. And I want to thank them for the leadership and all my colleagues in the legislature. It is a great step forward because people see progress. People see action. And that's what they've come to expect from the state of New York, and that's what they get. Results, right? Government is not a passive occupation. Government is supposed to do things. It's supposed to make change. Often government moves too slowly, but not in New York, and we're proud
He
of
was
that.
born the son
My
of
opinion, not
sharecroppers.
facts.
It's really interesting. My
Facts
step-grandfather
and
was a farmer.
two different things.
On
You can have
February
your own
21st,
opinion.
1940,
You can
outside
have
of
facts.
Troy, Alabama.
Say,
And he grew up on a family farm and attended
Cause
segregated schools in
remind
Pike
people,
County, Alabama.
lately, my opinion, what we should think
Let's
about
talk
going
about Pike
forward.
County.
That this is not just a moment for political process, protest. It's not just a moment to express outrage.
So he,
It's a moment to
Georgia.
do something about it.
He was a
and to
student at
make
Fisk
real
University.
reform and real
Greg Jeter's
change.
father
That's the
graduated
goal
from
of the
Fisk
moment.
University. That's a
I understand
HBCU.
the emotion.
John Lewis
People
organized
to
sitting
know how
demonstrations
upset I
at
am.
segregated lunch counters in Nashville, Tennessee.
Second step, what do we do about it? And let's get it done here in the state of New York.
So he lives
We
in
talk
Georgia
about a
now.
justice agenda. We want to fight
He
the
coordinated
systemic
the
racism,
SNCC
inequality, and
efforts to
injustice
organize
in our
voter
society.
registration drives.
That's what the protesters are saying. And I stand with the protesters in saying it, because it's very true. But then in this moment of change, let's make it real change, and let's get to the root of the issue.
So he was the
Talk about
co-author of the
injustice
National Book
and
Award winning and the
inequality
New York
in
Times
America.
best-selling
Well,
graphic
then it has to
novel
start with
memoir
education
trilogy
system.
March,
We
written
do not
by Andrew
educate
Aiden
all children the same.
and
Opportunity
illustrated
for
by
all.
Nate
No.
Powell.
Opportunity for some, opportunity for people who grow up in a rich school district and a rich family with high property taxes, and they go to great schools, but not for the children who grow up in poorer communities who go to inferior schools. That is the reality today. That is the truth. I'm
His
saying that as
biography,
governor of
published in
New York, not as a
1998,
protester on the
is
street,
entitled
on the
Walking
street
with the
corner.
Wind, a memoir
It is
of the
fact,
movement.
even in this state.
So Walking
We
with
spent
the Wind, a memoir of the
$36,000
movement.
per year
I
per
heard him
student.
talk about this book at
In
an
a
NAACP
wealthy school
meeting.
district, $13,000
Really
per
interesting.
year. In a poorer
Bye.
school district. How do you rationalize that? You can't. And say this is a system that provides equal opportunity for all. How do you still have children living in poverty? With all
And he
this
has the
wealth,
book,
with all
John
this
Lewis,
abundance,
Courage in Action.
how do you
And I heard
tolerate a
him talk about this
situation
book.
where some children, through no
And it's
fault of their
on my
own,
Kindle,
you
on
can't
my
blame
Amazon Fire,
them.
excuse me,
They were
is
born into
I
one
can
circumstance,
buy
and
for
they are living in
$9.99.
poverty.
I
You
have to
can't
put you under
justify
this.
the number of homeless,
Always
the
live in
lack of
budget.
affordable housing. You have a federal
So I
government
couldn't
that
book
just
fairs. You
went out
can't
of the
afford
housing
every book.
business.
But
I was the former
he has
housing
across
secretary.
that bridge,
Worked in
life
housing all my
lessons
life.
and a vision.
Housing was a federal
He talks
responsibility.
about his books. Across
Not state,
that bridge,
not
life
local.
lessons and a vision for change by
1949
John
Housing
Lewis.
Act. For this
And I can
nation,
download a
safe,
sample.
clean, decent housing for all Americans.
You want an
1949.
audible sample?
It's 2020. What are we doing? There's no Section
What
8,
do you
no Section 8
want?
project base.
That's
no
what the accent
public
is. I want an
housing.
audible sample.
And then we wonder why there's an affordable housing shortage.
I
Yes,
truly believe
criminal
that
justice reform.
crime is decreased by
Why
addressing the
do we
issues
lock
that
up
the
more people
governor
than
of
any
New York,
industrialized nation?
Andrew Cuomo, was talking about: education
That's a
equality,
sign of
child poverty,
success.
affordable
Read
housing,
America.
and criminal justice
They lock
reform.
up more people
But
than
criminal
any-
justice reform is really about
Why do we
affordable
have the
housing,
racial disparity
clean
in our
housing,
criminal justice system? How do you
free of
rationalize
any
it?
wild animals
Unless it goes back
or
to
insects,
the other systemic
and
injustices
addressing the
and
poverty.
inequality. If a person grows up in poverty, if a person doesn't have education, if a person doesn't have access to opportunity, then you see the result in the
So
criminal justice
the mayor,
system.
Governor Cuomo
This
agrees if they
is
don't
how you
have
get it.
access to
Injustice
equality,
and
access to education,
can't do
they
it.
may end up in the criminal justice
Either
system.
attack
So
it
it's important.
fully,
It's important to
or you
study
will never
fashion if you can,
That's the justice
ladies,
agenda. And this has to be done
to
on a
make
federal level.
apparel and
And
accessories.
it should be
Not
done on
only
a
to make the
federal
apparel
level.
and
It's not a
accessories,
New
but
York
to
issue or a
to make
California
and
issue or a
design the
Florida
fabric.
issue. It is an American issue. And you're in the middle of an election season.
Right, you
stand
can
up
design
and
the
say,
fabric. You
here's
can't design
my
thread. You make thread
election
and then
reform
use the
agenda.
thread to design the fabric.
You want my support, you want my vote, here's my agenda. You're running for Congress, you're running for Senate, you're running for whatever you're running for, you want my support, here's my agenda. That's my
And those
agenda.
people who want to run for Senate, run for Senate.
On the immediate issue of policing, this is my opinion to the local elected officials and the police departments that are grappling
He
with
says
it.
this book is for the people. It is for the grassroots leaders who
dismiss this
will
as a
emerge, not for
issue
the
of the
sake of
moment.
fame or fortune, but with the
Well,
good
this is
desire
just
to
about
good.
Mr. Floyd's
But you know
murder.
what? I started really I became interested. I wanted to study business because so many nonprofits need money.
That was the
So many
tipping
great
point.
nonprofits don't have enough
That
money.
was the
They don't know
point.
about
That was the straw that broke the
investing
camel's back. That's
their
when it
revenue
exploded.
in order to
But don't say
help
this is when it
people
started.
who are employed by the
started with
nonprofit,
Rodney King.
but also to
It
help the people
started
that
with
the
the murder of
nonprofit
Martin
is
Luther
supposed to
King.
help, who are not
This
the
has been
employees.
brewing for
So if you don't
decades,
employ
not
your
centuries.
employees money, it's
is
to be able to
the
live
anger and
in near the areas
repulsion
where they
at
need
the
to help,
systemic
then
injustice and
how are you
discrimination and
going to
racism
help the people
that exists in this
who
country.
their
That is the
nonprofit
truth.
helps if you don't pay your employees enough money to live in the area for good employees? And a lot of people have debt when they graduate from college, even if they are wealthy.
This is a difficult time.
So it's really important
Because
to
all
pay
the
your
rhetoric,
employees
all the hype
a good
is so
salary if
extreme,
you're at a nonprofit.
so
So it's,
partisan,
I
and
think,
so
the
reckless.
the good thing
That's
is
why I
that you
always
should
say
have your own money
facts and opinion. Facts
and
opinion.
then start maybe a nonprofit or volunteer for a nonprofit. And if you can't continue to volunteer for a nonprofit and you have enough money, stop volunteering and volunteer
To advance their opinion. You want to advance your
when
opinion?
you earn
advance
enough
your
money.
opinion. Don't
I
create
think that is what
facts
is
and
important.
say to the American people, these are
And
facts.
so that's why I
To advance
say
your
start your
opinion.
own business.
Because
Maybe
then we can't even
people
have an
with
intelligent conversation.
who are employed
It
by
starts
other
at the highest
companies or
level.
nonprofits can start their own business or nonprofit and
Trump
earn
did a tweet
additional
today
revenue in order to
that
help other
surprises me.
nonprofit that they work for or that they
Even
started.
after all the tweets he has done. You read his tweets, you get to a point where you say, well, nothing could surprise me. I've seen it all. And then you get surprised again. You get shocked again. You get disgusted again. President of the United States.
So thank you, John Lewis. It was really great listening to him talk.
He tweeted today.
Oh, he's a good-looking old guy.
Protester
That's
in
my joke.
Buffalo, who was hurt by the Buffalo
That's my
police.
joke, old
It was
guy.
on a video that went
The
viral.
Honorable John.
Mr. Nagino, 75-year-old gentleman who was out protesting and is knocked to the ground by police. He's in the hospital in
Oh
Buffalo.
God!
He's in
I
intensive care
actually
care
have this
unit.
Roger's
Care, but he's
Thesaurus
still
of Words for Intellectuals is
I
Known.
spoke to him
That's a book that I'm interested in.
the day he was brought
Thank
into the
you.
hospital. President
Actually, I had to
tweets
purchase the MCAT
that this
528
man may have
and
been
study the MCAT while
a
I go.
member of
It's great
Antifa.
that I can actually, it's easy to read what he's saying. So I thank him for having us. And maybe we'll travel to Albany. There's a lot of businesses that need to open in Albany. Albany is nice. I've been to
It's
Albany.
all
And the
fabricated.
NCP.
There's no fact to any of it. He
That's
accuses
why
this
people should
man
join the
of
NAACP.
being associated with Antifa. No proof whatsoever. No fact. Just an assertion. He fell harder than
I was
he
interested in the MCAT after learning about people who majored in public health. A lot of people can't afford to go to a physician, and I thought maybe I could, because I do read.
What does that even mean?
It's interesting that I might travel to the American Medical Association to talk to physicians
What do you
about
think it was
healthcare
staged?
and
You
about
think the blood coming out of his head
being
was
healthy.
staged?
So I've learned a
that what
lot
you're saying?
about being healthy.
You saw his head hit the pavement. You see blood on the pavement.
He's talking about a man that was a
Maybe
white
he
man who
fell
was
harder
hit by
than
the
he
police, and his blood is on
How
the
reckless,
pavement.
how irresponsible, how mean, how cruel.
So now, that's the end of that.
I mean, if there was
That's
ever
interesting. So that
a
happened on June 9th.
reprehensible, dumb comment,
I'm sorry, something happened with the feed. Oh, so let me talk about today and what the governor wants me to talk about today. The mayor is still answering questions from the media. Mayor de
Michael, what it
Blasio.
means is the truth is the truth. And obviously, I want to protect the city's finances always. But what I'm trying to say is,
It's really important to study healthcare as a politician.
I don't.
I'm not going to be a politician. However, it's good to have money to help politicians help people. It's good to have money to help nonprofits help people. It's good to have money.
Anybody. By the way, this review is going to look at people on the NYPD.
So it's really good to have money to operate your nonprofit. So perfect. One day I'll probably not have a nonprofit, or I wanted to have a mobile library like other people that I read about in the New York Times and other magazines and newspapers, where you have a mobile library and a mobile fashion cart. That's what I kind of want, and a mobile maybe not maybe a mobile food, not a food cart, but a mobile book library. There was a man who started a mobile library, and he drove to different housing projects and in urban areas where the kids don't have to walk to the library to return the book. That they have the mobile book library where they can ask questions, they can do their book reports for summer reading, and that's what's really happening right now, that these libraries are closed. So I beg the governor to open the libraries, because there are children that don't have cars, or their parents don't have cars, excuse me, and they're not able to go to the library to do their book reports for summer reading. So if anybody knows that work in the library, that there are summer reading programs for children, and people are able to go to the library, the children are able to attend the library, go to the library, and they give a book report about the books that they read. These children, African American, European American children, are reading like one book a day. And especially in my county, they're reading about one book a day in the summer if they're not able to purchase the book, and they report it to the librarian. And it's important to donate this money to libraries so that they can buy books for people to be able to read the books on children to read the books on the summer reading list. And then also for the library program. So the kids are reading books on their summer reading list, and they are reading books in addition to their summer reading list, and reporting them to the library. So they're reading like a book a day, and they report it to the library. So it's really important for the libraries to be open. So I pray that y'all just open the libraries if it's safe to open, if no one's stalking people at libraries. Amen to that. I don't know why someone would stalk someone in the library.
Age-old issues of structural racism. Now, a lot of them use much harsher tactics. A lot of them saw much more violence.
So I did watch the documentary Eyes on the Park, but I've read a lot of books. I've worked at several libraries, law libraries, university library, and a public library. So I know I've read a lot of books. And it helps. It helps not being, it just helps. And that's where people should go. That's where the programs are. That's where if there's a library in, let's say Newark or in Dallas, Oklahoma, Philadelphia, you go there and meet authors who graduated from college. Maybe they can give you a college recommendation. Maybe they can help you edit your schoolwork or your college essays or your boarding school essays. There are African American managed boarding schools. So for high school students, elementary students, these are important. The library is an important thing. So remember, you high school students, if you live in a bad area, try to go to the library. Try to volunteer for different nonprofits and meet people. Volunteer at a hospital, volunteer at a law firm, maybe meet people, and you'll be able to go to college. Don't worry about what college you're going to. Just go to a good college. and your life will be really, really,
absolutely
really
want
nice.
health standards.
In college, I worked. People can work. It's a great thing to work. I think maybe I might have taken a lot of classes or worked maybe. I should have maybe worked 2 days a week maybe to study a little bit more. But it was fun to work. It was good to work. It's good to earn money because you need money for like deodorant, soap, anything that you need to prevent pregnancy. If you don't want to get pregnant in college, anything you need to take care of your children if you have children while you're in college. So it's important. So I did work at the district attorney's office, and that helped me meet a lot of attorneys.
From Central Brooklyn, I want to shout her out because I found her work profound.
Oh, I wanted to thank Mr. John Mott. I watched his blog on LinkedIn, and he mentioned he mentioned me, and I appreciate that. He's an African American reporter, maybe black diaspora reporter from CNBC. So he's works for CNBC. I'm relearning about finance because I really think finance is important to help nonprofit organizations like the NAACP, like the Urban League, like all the public libraries, all the police athletic leagues. I was a part of the police athletic league too. So it's really important, finance. And one of my favorite series of books is the Dummies books. So we're not dummies, but it's Corporate Finance for Dummies. They're really, really, really good reference books. And I've read a lot of them. And the Corporate Finance for Dummies book, I downloaded just to remind me about the finance vocabulary, like learning how to read financial reports, filing SEC reports for a corporation, starting a corporation like the New York Times where you can't vote out, the board can't vote you out. You can start a corporation for the board to vote you out if you want to do that today. It does cost money to start a corporation.
Department of Small Business Services assist and help those businesses get back on their feet, but we do want to make
So like for people like Michael Jordan, I wonder if he could start his own, let's say limited partnership or sole proprietorship, or a corporation where he can't be voted out and has a board of directors which advise him but can't vote him out in order to manage all of his companies, including his franchise company, where he owns the company, but he has to pay a percentage of his income in order for the franchisor to help market his company. I believe that's the definition of a franchise.
I do not know the answer is the truth. IAB initiates its own investigations for sure. I've seen that for a long time. It also initiates investigations because civilians make complaints.
So my mom taught me a lot about reading, writing, spelling, but she's a better speller than I. She can spell. And you know why? She went to college too. She attended college. She actually attended college and took business classes, and that was great. And she did very well in school.
We'll get you whatever we can on the state of play up now.
Next we have Sophia from WNY.
I don't understand killing people and competing. We're all trying to work together. Starting your own business helps you support nonprofits. You have to have money in order to work unless you'll be some type of, homeless person walking around promoting, collecting money for the poor. You're the poor. So you can't attend, I wanted to say. So Corporate Finance for Dummies by Michael Sallard, really good book.
Based allegedly on violating your own curfew.
So it's really good. It's a really good book.
Implementing a curfew
And I
that
need
is
to learn more
resulting in
about
peaceful
finance.
protesters and essential workers being jailed.
In order to know about my own personal finances, about retirement and mutual funds, about bonds, stocks and bonds. I was interested in investing in certain stocks and bonds. And I read, I think in Black Enterprise or Forbes or Fortune, that I actually don't. I read Forbes, Fortune, and Black Enterprise, and sometimes, and then I watch CNBC. I learned about, I'm sorry, like writing a list about everything I purchased, and then making sure that my mutual fund has that company that invest in that company. So it's really great. Like, for example, if your mutual fund invests in CBS or NBC or ABC or Fox News, it's important to support those products if you like them. And it's also important to exclude products that you don't like. So this is the cover of Corporate Finance for Dummies. And so it's not for dummies, it's for people. It's not a dumb book. It's kind of funny. It's an interesting book. And it talks about what's unique about corporate finance. It's important. If you want to start your own business, your own corporation, you need to invest in order to have money, in order to pay your employees and yourself if there is a disaster or some type of event that will stop business or revenue for months, weeks, or years. It talks about depository institutions. I talked about depository institutions yesterday. There's a list on my website, intelligentluxurymagazine.com. There's a blog, there's a link, and you can read about the minority depository institutions, and that's from the FDIC, that list, and security firms, raising capital, raising money by acquiring debt, I don't know about all that, raising cash by selling equity, selling stock to the public. This is a really, your balance sheet, current assets, long-term assets, liabilities, preferred shares, common shares, treasury shares. All these things are really interesting, and it's really interesting to just continue to study these. To study finance. So it's really interesting to continue to study finance. Anyway, so remember, when you're managing a nonprofit, it's good to not just keep the money in a savings account. It's also it may be good. I'm not a financial advisor. Make sure you have a certified financial advisor, or but sometimes I spell like British. That might be part Australian. So it's kind of like it's really important to invest maybe part of the revenue from your nonprofit's membership fees, book sales, working with other nonprofits to publish a book. Like, for example, NAACP nonprofits can start their own, can sell books. I'm sorry, NAACP branches can sell books with their local historical societies and maybe earn income, and then invest that income in different types of stocks and bonds, mutual funds, in order to earn a revenue to pay employees, if there are employees. So anyway, I wanted to read about what Governor Cuomo, the Minority Women-Owned Business Enterprise Certification Program. I wanted to read a little bit more about that.
Well, Deborah Lee, it's a very, very important question. And
Sorry, Deborah Lee, I remember that she was one of the presidents of BET. Really interesting woman. Anyway, maybe I'll talk about her, but this is the New York State business. I'm sorry. The 2020 New York State Regional MWB Opportunities Expo Series brings together various state agencies and authorities, prime contractors, and other key players that have a significant presence in each region. So even if you don't, this year they'll be hosting their events virtually, specific to Long Island, Southern Tier, Western New York, and Mohawk Valley regions. You know, I smile. It's so great that in America there's so much assistance for African Americans And this is why I smile, ignoring what whoever says,
For everyone, regardless of
because they're not here with me in the house. I don't know why they're talking. And that's the end of that.
You name it, a whole range of services.
And then you're listed on a list. So maybe if someone's looking for minority contractors, if you are certified, if you are a minority and and you get certified, you would be able to be listed, and people can find you easily or immediately. They have requirements, and then there's an application.
Three co-chairs.
And maybe the fee needs to be waived,
Three co-chairs. One is
but they're available to, the application is available for eligible applicants.
Grace Bonilla, the executive director. I know they are deeply, deeply sensitive to what immigrant New Yorkers go through.
And they want to confirm that you are a minority. And then they have out-of-state firms can use this application, but must have authority to do business in New York State from the New York Department of State prior to submitting any application for MWBE certification. Qualifying new applicants can simultaneously submit up to 3 one-stop addendums with the fully completed New York State MWBE certification application to DMWBD. Addendums included are for the following MWBE programs: Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. If you're an engineer, electrician, if you are an author, if you are a marketing director of your own company, maybe the Port Authority needs your services. If you build trains, if you build roads, bridges, tunnels. The New York City Small Business Services is another addendum program. Joint Certification Committee of Erie County and City of Buffalo. That's important. If you are certified with the New York State, the application will be forwarded to other MWBE programs you choose, and the service is one-time courtesy for applicants that have never previously applied or are not currently under review for MWBE certification with any partner or DMWBD. So you can read that information on esd.newyork.gov. That's esd.newyork.gov.
When you think about this administration, by far the most representative administration in the history of the city, well over 50% of the senior leadership roles are women. There's greater representation from all communities than we've seen in any city government before, but we want to do more. We want to do more in the next year and a half.
It's important to support your seniors. That's what the governor, the mayor was talking about right now.
It combines so many, it's one of the toughest jobs in America to be the commissioner of the NYPD. It combines
so global public health experts have cleared central New York, the Finger Lakes, Mohawk Valley, North Country, and Southern Tier to enter phase 3. It's great to visit these other areas of New York. I believe that I was watching, I watched Lakefront Property last night, and they talked about Lakefront Property near the Finger Lakes, really beautiful lakes. The state is allowing localities to open up public pools and playgrounds at their discretion beginning today. Why not libraries, huh? One library at least is our one library, please. It's great to stay on budget. It's great to buy like maybe a book a day, and then you could take out a book at the library, or borrow a book a day and buy a book a week or 2 books a week. Confirms.
And look, I think when you actually drill down on what Commissioner
That's what I wanted to read from Governor Andrew Cuomo. It's so great that he installed art at the LaGuardia Airport. So I think he's an artist, so that's good. He's an artist and a lawyer. And it's good to be an artist when you study art. I took a lot of art classes at the library last summer, or a few summers ago, at different libraries, and it's so much fun. Sometimes I go to libraries in other states. So anyway, I'm looking for a cell phone stand. Anybody?
Um,
You know, I looked in different stores. I couldn't
and
find
the fact that
a cell
you've
phone
moved the
stand.
disciplinary process faster
So
than
that,
we've ever seen before, and it
good.
needs to go
But
faster
this is
still.
great. In
That needs to be
October
by his
is the
actions,
Brooklyn
his ability to
Festival
help
Day
us
and
move
Literary
forward as a
Marketplace at Brooklyn
Last question
Borough
for
Hall and
today
vicinity.
with Joe from Politico.
And they have a list of events. Oh, this is amazing. The Brooklyn Book Festival is September 28th through October 5th, 2020. And they have different authors at the Brooklyn Book Festival. I think I work with a Brooklyn librarian.
Lack of a spike from these protests, how that's going to impact your
He should write a book.
decision-making on
He's
other types of
interesting
outdoor
guy.
activities. Then I'll ask my second question.
Yeah, Joe, I think the protests were,
Talking about protesting,
you know, a
you
very intense
I protest
concentrated
safely,
time, but again,
and,
outdoors, people broadly wearing face coverings, and we don't see a lot of evidence yet, but we might. I don't want to, for a moment, belittle that we might.
Right now I'm also listening to the Audible original Break Shot, My First 21 Years
So there may have been
by
some
James Taylor.
balancing factor there. But the big question really is what's going to be the impact of phase one.
I'm gonna try to buy these books, people. I can't buy everyone's
People
book.
coming in contact with them, with each
Who
other
can, huh?
today, all
So
day,
it's good
every
to see on
day.
the book.
Protests, I'm not belittling the impact of protests, but they can for brief periods of time and smaller numbers of people. Phase one is hundreds of thousands. We talk about
So, Mr. John Lewis, maybe I'll talk to Mr. John Lewis about tourism in his region.
I mean, this is the thing to watch.
So maybe I'll talk about that on Monday
So,
or sometime this summer.
when you get to the last week of
But I
June,
pray to be at the
you're gonna
NAACP
have a
convention
much better sense of how all of
and
this is adding up.
to earn sponsorship to attend.
If we can move forward.
It costs a lot of money to attend the events, but I pray to attend for people who can attend and tell them about different events.
How successful phase one is. We're obviously talking about things like beaches, pools.
At the national
They're the things
convention.
that are the hardest things. They're really big.
Usually at the national convention, it's interesting. I'm usually at different workshops, and other people are from the local branch are at different workshops. It's like at a political, election workshop, finance workshops. It's so many different workshops, and they have vendors. So that's interesting. So I wrote an article about 9W, but I want to write a little more articles about Route 9W and the Route 9s. So it's so interesting. The Museum of the Cloisters is along Route 9, I believe, in New York City. It's near Route 9, near a park in the Bronx, I think. So I was reading about Route 9, and then I remember that my friend Danielle from high school, she worked at the museum. Now now I think she has her own company. Her husband owns a wine company. I didn't see the name. So maybe I'll interview her somewhere. At a library maybe. But let's talk about listening to the mayor. After the mayor, we'll talk about Oklahoma, and then we'll be done.
But I don't blame anyone in the media who asks these questions, and I think it is inherent to the media persona, the media character.
You can learn more about the NAACP convention at NAACP.org when it's going to be held, and I drive SEO by not telling everyone everything in the title or on my show, so that's why I'm not going to say where it is. Please don't make me say it to God. Officer.
And Margaret Garnett, as well as an extraordinary leader, everyone understands the independence of real life. So I have not questioned in my mind that they're going to get to the truth. They're going to fearlessly, honestly get to the truth. And it's not about whether the truth is convenient or not. We need the full truth.
People want more money for the MTA, which is important to clean the subway and the trains. But what's really, really interesting is that the board meeting will be held for the MTA on June 24th virtually. And maybe I'll tell the board meeting. For some reason, I like trains. I like riding on the train. If it's a clean train and you can ride on certain subways in New York City, and you can see a lot
I'll conclude now
of the city
with
from
just a quick thought.
Metro North, which travels through the Bronx. You can go to Yankee Stadium. So it's great to stop at Yankee Stadium. There are a lot of tickets there for really inexpensive tickets. Sometimes they have tickets for sale at the box office. You wait in line and you get a ticket and you can see the Yankees play after you get off the Metro North or the subway. So now there's a Metro North stop. So now it's great to take the Metro North stop to get off at Yankee Stadium. You can walk to Target. There's a Target near there. There's a shopping center near the Yankee Stadium and near the parking lots. You have to pay for parking. You can advertise on the MTA, and then there's procurement and small business programs, and you can sing on the MTA. You have to apply to sing. You can get on the bidders list. You have guide for contractors and suppliers. And even if you want a procurement, a lot of states or cities, you can register for their procurement list, and they'll send you information based on what type of company you own.
It actually adds up, which is why we are now in phase one.
They have upcoming capital projects and current solicitations.
That's how we get to phase two and everything thereafter. Much better time for this. Thank you, everybody.
And that's at the MTA. We're going to talk about Oklahoma. Thank you, Mayor de Blasio. So I think Mayor de Blasio is really interested in helping people start their own businesses. He hired a lot of African Americans in the small business department and in other business departments that help people operate their business. And remember, travel to Brooklyn book festivals, and you can go to brooklynbookfestival.org, and that's in October and September, maybe. I do know, but you can go to the website. The police are investigating anyone that has hacked my website. So some people have hacked my website, tried to hack my videos. But isn't it great now with smart televisions you can watch the internet on the television? Oh, so this is great. So I met the CEO of Kering, and there are different fashion brands. And it's like Boucheron watches, Ulysse Nardin watches, Gerard Perregaux watches. That's what they sell. Beautiful, beautiful apparel from Saint Laurent. Gucci, Saint Laurent, Bottega Veneta, Balenciaga, Alexander McQueen, woman from Alexander McQueen designed Meghan Markle's wedding dress. So they have Gucci, Baroni, Balenciaga, beautiful, beautiful apparel. So sometimes they hire companies to produce products and services, and companies like Kering, companies like Louis Vuitton, Moet, Hennessy, different fashion designers like Louis Vuitton design companies sometimes hire companies to be a licensee. So it's important to, go to licensing trade shows, which I may attend. It's interesting how people sabotage and steal to prevent. So I wonder how a lot of people who started earning a lot of income, like my father, Michael Jordan, how do you deal with people stealing Nissan cars and crashing them when they found out? Like, what the heck is that about? Your landlord stealing from you if you're wealthy. I didn't feel safer in a hood. I actually didn't live in a hood all of the time. But so this is interesting. Balenciaga. So like the different companies sometimes hire designers to produce apparel and accessories to produce apparel accessories with their name, and you pay them a licensing fee. So thank you, CEO Karen. I interviewed him on youtube.com/9rocks, and he was at the an event. So I go to different events, and people talk to me, and no, my breath does not stink. My breath does stink late at night, so I do need to brush my teeth at night. Usually after I eat a snack. Other than that, my breath is fine. Let's talk about breath. You know whose breath didn't stink either? Dr. Carson. Oh, but I have a script. So now, let's talk about HarperCollins. So we are working on things right now. Wow, it's interesting. Some people who it's interesting. Really, I'm just praying that people stop behaving the way they do, or they have to be in prison. Nobody wants anyone in prison, but sometimes they have to go. Especially people, hypnotize people. That's a joke. So, we talked about classic works in digital audio for the first time is at HarperCollins. And Caedmon released classic works in digital audio for the first time. And it's their 68th anniversary this year. And their legendary audio imprint that released classic works like Richard White's powerful autobiography, Black Boy, Thompson Wilder's Pulitzer Prize winning novel, The Bridge of St. Louis Ray, and 2 novels by author Betty Smith, Joy in the Morning and Maggie Now, and N. Scott Momaday's Pulitzer Prize winning novel, Housemaid of Dawn. If you are able to listen to an audiobook, if you aren't able to read, I like reading and listening to music, so I don't listen to a lot of audiobooks. But they're great. A lot of people listen to a lot of audiobooks. Now, we're going to talk about Michael Jordan. But we're going to talk about Lehigh Valley Hospital in Hecktown, Oaks Construction. So the construction is started with Lehigh Hospital, Hecktown, Oaks. And I think Lehigh Valley Hospital. One day I'll visit y'all. And it's just off Route 33 along Hecktown Road in Lower Nazareth Township. The Health Network's latest hospital campus will feature a 106,000 square foot 2-story hospital with 35,000 square foot Lehigh Valley Cancer Institute and a 61,000 square foot medical office building designed for patient comfort and convenience. And that's at Lehigh Valley Lehigh Valley Hospital in Pennsylvania. Thank y'all for sending me that information. I am Stephanie, and this is my website, Intelligent Luxury. USBank.com is the website where you can learn more about investing and retirement planning, investing for your nonprofit. Your banker is there to help you invest revenue from your for-profit or nonprofit organization in order to have money to pay your employees and to pay yourself if there is any type of event that prevents you from earning any income. Remember about Fashion Week in New York? Great thing. There's Fashion Night Out, invented by Anna Wintour of Vogue magazine, the style director. That's why sometimes I call myself the style director too. So I like to call myself the style director and owner of Intelligent Luxury, which is an e-magazine, and prayerfully also I'll be in print. So, and I'll print more e-copies. Then there's the Louis Vuitton. And remember, on my website you can see Louis Vuitton products that I picked. I need a Louis Vuitton hard rolling luggage, because if it's soft, it crushes things. I usually have one suitcase with my books and magazines, one suitcase for my clothes, apparel, accessories, put my shoes in a bag, and then I have an empty suitcase for anything that I purchase while I'm traveling. So we have to pay, so you pay for your suitcase and that's fine. Remember to watch Stephen Colbert from home, and then I plan to attend the Super Bowl. So I plan to produce an event at the Super Bowl party, probably like a literary dinner dance thing. So with authors who are NFL players who played either in the Super Bowl or not. Luckily, I know someone who played in the Super Bowl, and that's Al Shamond. Al Shamond played in the Super Bowl, played for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and he is a Temple University graduate. So I pray to talk to him after I get a little more sponsors about how he graduated from Temple University. What did he study? How did he study? How long did he study? And it's really great. It's really great. Like people like Michael Jordan, who's attended. How long did he study? Did well in school. So at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Maybe I'll attend there. Take a couple of courses there in art. I like taking courses in art. I like sketching. And it's great to know how to sketch in order to design apparel, accessories, and products. So hopefully my Sun, River, and Ocean products will be jewelry, fashion, apparel, and home decor products. Like pots, pans, and cups, bowls, sculptures, masks. I even made I designed a mask. Now, Roots was the number 3 of the 50 top shows in U.S. history. So it was several shows, and you could read the book Roots, written by Alex Haley. That's on a lot of summer reading lists. And you can watch 60 Minutes CBS. And I'll play The Sims. If you have the game The Sims, I think it's better than computer animated design software that I've seen, easier to use. And you can change colors. And you can, I didn't want to say that. You can design apparel and design the character's look. I even made a character look like myself, and I made like a little movie. But it was on CD-ROM, so I don't have that game anymore. So now I downloaded the game to my tablet, SimCity and Sims, so it's great. Then so that was many years ago. Actually, a co-worker told me about that game, and it's really good. So Kobe Bryant is a retired Laker, and he promotes art of sport, body armor, great Father's Day gifts, body armor, and art of sport. But body armor is a great drink. They have coconut water, and you can look at my website, intelligentluxurymagazine.com, and you can see that they have a low sugar body armor, and they have the Wizard series. Books are created by Kobe Bryant and written with an author. They have the Training Camp, Wizard series, The Legacy and the Queen, and Epoca, The Tree of Ecroft. So I lived in Philadelphia for several years as I attended Temple University. So I plan to produce several programs. You can look at the programs that I plan to produce at intelligentluxurymagazine.com. They're going to be really they're going to be programs, and it's interesting. So I love watching PBS. Today I'm wearing Coupio from TJ Maxx, and my Adrian bra, which is a really nice strap. So this is my Adrian. The name it's like Adrian something. And this is Coupio, and then I have Walmart black pants and my Walmart flats. Very nice outfit today too. It's good to have a nice CNBC. Thank you, John from CNBC. I should watch his show soon. His show is on right now. That's Squawk Alley with Carlos and Sarah. And I love Free People Clothes. It's so funny. They probably know about Rockland County because CNBC is in Bergen County. So Rockland is right next to Bergen County in New York, in the state of New York. So, and Nyack is near Route 9W. Route 9W goes through Nyack, so That's a funny story. And so then I read the New York Times this Sunday. So I thank you for mentioning. I watched a little bit of it. I'm going to rewatch it on LinkedIn. And he had several different people talking about business, but I didn't get to see the entire show. So I'm going to try to watch that today. And then I have to watch my roommate's show because Althea Bates has a show on Facebook. If you're friends with her on Facebook, she's been on local news channels in Connecticut. So this is us at Temple University. Our board member owns a couple of malls. So we're really doing well at Temple University. Is good. It's a great university. I love Free People clothes. So yesterday I wore my Free People shirt, my white Free People shirt with a cotton, I like to call it cut or edge, unsewn, unhemmed edge. I think it's really interesting. They make really interesting clothes. And I have my red Walmart tank top underneath. So Walmart has a lot of luxury products like Target. If you go on my website, target.com. So me and my mom love shopping. We love shopping and looking and wearing clothes. My mom is a really good stylist. So sometimes she styles me, sometimes I have to say no. We disagree sometimes. But we like to be avant-garde. We like to wear different trends. So I started the shoulder bra strap trend for me. So this is the bra. But this bra actually, it moves as I move. So it's a good bra. What else are we talking about? Well, read the Wall Street Journal, read the New York Times, and I'm a White House correspondent. So this is Temple University graduates, right? My friend, my roommate in my apartment, we all live together in Philadelphia, in our own apartment too, not just in the dormitory. She has her own show, and it's really theological, so that's a good show. I know the name of the show. I watched it. So that's Sherry. Sherry has that show. So in college, if you haven't been to college, if you're from another world, I guess, or don't know a lot about college, in college, men and women share a room, and then they have suites. So sometimes you share a room, and share a bathroom. Sometimes you share. Two people share a room in an apartment style where they share a bathroom, and then sometimes they share. Sometimes you don't share a room, you share an apartment. But at Temple University, they give you a list of landlords, and I think they background check the landlords and the people that are on the property for students. So it's great to go to your college to know where to live. So that's what I did. I have my own apartment in Philadelphia, in Philadelphia, and it's great to take the subway. So I took the subways and the trolleys and attended classes at Center City's campus. But I didn't attend classes at our other campus. So my hands get dry because I wash them a lot. I have a page on Instagram, Intelligent Luxury Magazine, and I show a picture of the classics, Barnes & Noble's books that I have. But now I'm I think I wanted to read a couple of other Charles Dickens books before I start reading the other books. Well, let's talk about, I'm not playing music today, but the president yesterday went to Dallas, and I watched part of the roundtable discussion at Gateway Church Dallas campus in Dallas, Texas. And Dr. Ben Carson spoke, and Reverend spoke. Let me get my notes. Oh wait, my notes are on my phone. The notes are on my phone. Wait. I have email on my tablet. So there's email on my tablet. Alright. So that's in case my phone dies, I have my tablet. The tablet, you can make calls with Google Voice. So did I just delete the email? sometimes I use, if my notepad is, there's a note thing here, but instead of, if I need access to my notes, if I'm on my phone, on my laptop or desktop, then I just email it to myself, my notes. So yesterday, Pastor Morrison spoke. There was a record-setting funding for HBCUs and increased access to capital to small business and minority businesses. That's what Donald Trump talked about, and hospitals, and allowing social workers to work. So don't take money away from the police. God help us. Social workers and victims of crime need the police, but we definitely need to earn more money or print the money at the U.S. Treasury to help social workers have programs for children to be able to travel to the library, to stay there at the library at night if they need to study, to have a ride for them to go to and from the library maybe. So that actually wasn't my idea, but it's interesting. People will force me to say something in order to make someone mad. But a lot of people have similar ideas. I'm not going to start a nonprofit or a company, but remember to, when you make your nonprofit business plan, you have to budget for your salary and not go over that, or you can be in trouble. So it's good to start a for-profit business, and people will just give you money if you cry. Remember crying at financial aid offices? They may give you money. You know? But even if you have wealthy parents, they may not give you amount of money to help you study why you need to have more scholarships, or at least donate food to college students who don't have a lot of money. But anyway, the president participates in a roundtable discussion on greatness, restoring, rebuilding, and renewing. But today, the president doesn't have any public events scheduled, and the vice president today is in a listening session with faith and community leaders at Covenant Church in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I made him travel to Pittsburgh. I met people from Pittsburgh and Temple University. I know that they have the rivers. I always see that when they have the Pittsburgh football team plays. The stadium is by the rivers, so I know that information. And it'd be great to travel to Pittsburgh to learn more about how anyone can start their own business and help the economy. So it's great to take notes on your email. It's kind of like taking notes on your cloud, on your Microsoft Office cloud, your Google cloud, any type of cloud that you use to be able to access the internet. And paper is great. I found that writing it down on paper and then retyping it helps you remember if you have time. So the vice president is going to also tour the Oberg Industries. The Oberg manufactures precision components delivered for the healthcare industry. So maybe one day I can interview him, talk to him about how he started his business, or the person who founded the Oberg Industries. So he makes medical, automotive, metal packaging, aerospace defense, housing and construction, consumer products, and oil and gas exploration parts. So I'm not really a fan of a lot of gas exploration or oil exploration. Now there's a lot of vegetable oil, plant oil, and animal oil that people can use for their cars. It's so great. I think with family businesses, it's important for people to start their own businesses. And then, like with my college friends, we all have our own businesses, and then talk about one another as businesses online. Usually, so as a member of the press, I think It's great to have your own business. What if you start a business with a family member and then someone gets married or divorced? Then, what if you started a business while you were married and then you started with your relative and then there's a divorce and your husband takes part of the company and fires your family, you know what I mean? So it's important to have your own business. Dr. Ben Carson is the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development. So thank you, Dr. Ben Carson. He said in a speech in March in front of the National Association of Counties 2020 Legislative Conference, he said one of the biggest challenges America is facing is the nationwide shortage of affordable housing. I think also in clean housing, so I agree with him. He was a nice man that invited me to a luncheon for African American students who liked school or loved school. And he says we've really reached the point where it's a crisis, that we have teachers, nurses, police officers, and firefighters who cannot afford to live in the communities they serve. And that is not only a disservice to them, it's a disservice to their communities as well. So HUD is taking on the affordability challenge by taking action on deregulation. I am a Democrat or Republican. I don't know. Maybe not deregulation, just learning what type of regulations are the best regulations is what I think. So I don't even know if I disagree. I just have to know what type of regulations he wants to deregulate. So especially with old homes, it's important to take the history, take photographs, sketch the photographs, save this data in paper and online, and then demolish, save the materials so that we don't have to dig up rock. Try to save the wood so we don't have to grow more wood, clean it, and rebuild it to look like it was in the past in specific areas. So I think that's important to preserve history. A lot of people have homes that are historic. It's important to preserve your history. Also, the U.S. Department of of Housing and Urban Development. A lot of people, whether they are violent or not, they violently ask me for information, and I feel bad that I don't can't talk to everyone, so I just put it on my website and put it on here, and then I'll have to talk. So then I can hang out with my mama and help people through purchasing. And I think there's power in that. So the power that I'm giving is information, which costs money for me to learn to find out where the information is. So the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development today announced yesterday that HUD has worked with Google to improve Google's online advertising policies to better align with the requirements of the Fair Housing Act where applicable. So there is no discrimination on sale. The only thing that I debate with people about is that it actually is very interesting that you are able to target certain ethnicities if you have an organization or if you are a part of an ethnic group or a part of a special interest group. It's important to be able to pick and promote to that specific group if you don't have a large budget. But of course, don't discriminate against people based on their skin color, just on who they are. So Dr. Ben Carson said, and he wrote, advertising practices may continue to evolve, but our nation's laws are unwavering, said HUD Secretary Ben Carson. It is one of our key duties at HUD to enforce the Fair Housing Act and ensure that all Americans have housing choice. Improvements are underway in the online advertising space, and HUD encourages platforms such as Google to take these types of steps to eliminate unlawful discrimination in advertising and seek to ensure compliance with our nation's fair housing laws. So if you're a large company, it's important to target African Americans, but then if you know about social media advertising, they can also target special interest groups. Like, I like to read a lot, so, and also maybe in that special interest group. But if you feel that they are discriminating against people, well, I actually, if you feel that people are discriminating, I don't think so. I think it's important to be able to target. It's important for African American businesses who don't have a marketing budget similar to an S&P 500, Fortune 500, or major corporation to be able to target a specific ethnic group when they are advertising online, so that they can reach the ethnic group that they want to reach. But I don't think it is important for these companies to hire more ethnic minorities, women, and different in different jobs, and I think that's important, especially in the fashion industry. It's important not to discriminate against people of different ethnic groups or special interests. So thank you, Dr. Carson, for that information. It's important not to discriminate against people in housing. It's really important for people, if you want to purchase a home, to have good credit. You know, a lot of finance magazines tell you about correcting your credit, removing old, bad incidents or events on your credit report is important. When you have your student loan, it's important to quickly file for some type of waiver or deferment if you can't afford your student loan. If you are, it's very, very important. If you're in your business, on your own business, and you can't afford your rent, it's important to go to social services and maybe apply for different things like maybe Medicaid or emergency services if you are having trouble with your business. But also with buying a home, it's important to be clean, trying to clean your floor every day, maybe with some types, maybe a little bleach, I don't know, or water, depending on the type of floor. Then I don't know how clean wood soap cleans, but maybe a little bleach won't dye your floor. If you mix it with water, a lot of bleach does. You have to read the box and read the instructions if you purchased your floor recently. And it's important to shower and leave the soap and water on your body for at least 5 minutes. These are things that people, sometimes immigrants, don't know how to shower with soap. They've never showered with soap. And June is National Home Ownership Month, says HUD. It's important to talk to a realtor, a banker. A lot of banks like Chase Bank say print out all of your statements. Chase is a great bank. I love that bank. They keep all of your statements, I think, now. So you can know what you need to remove from what you purchase. And also, it's good to keep track when you are doing your taxes. Chase Bank. So I used to use my Chase Bank card for everything and not pay for cash, so that I pay with cash so that I could keep track of everything that I spent, in order to have that when you're going to apply for a loan, an automobile loan, a mortgage loan, a second mortgage loan, and for a business. So if you have your bank has your debit card and you make purchases, and it's not only a credit card, it's a debit card with a credit card symbol, and you choose debit, it's deducted from your bank account, and you're not charged interest for that service or a fee if you use it in a store. Sometimes you're charged interest if you use an ATM by another bank. So it's really important to use your debit card. It's not a debt card, it's a debit card. And it's important to, I think I read this somewhere, that you have 2 debit cards where you have 2 bank accounts where all of your money is not on one bank card. And then you transfer the money online to one debit card from your major bank account, so that it's safe in case you lose it or if someone tries to rob you, to not have all your money on one debit card. That's what I believe. And I read about that in an article. That wasn't my idea. Someone said, I can't remember which magazine or newspaper I read, about having multiple debit cards to pay for different things. So as I started to earn more money, I started to have a card for like one service or another. So the President Donald Trump proclaimed June 2020 National Home Ownership Month. For generations, home ownership has sustained and empowered Americans. And recently, we have been reminded that our homes are central to our health, our independence, and well-being for our families. That's why it's important to have regulations, because sometimes your homes can be unsafe. You have to have tile on the back of different things like of your stoves in case there's a fire. You may not need a hood. I don't know if the hood helps prevent a fire, or maybe a hood without a fan in the wall might prevent vermin. Then each June, HUD Secretary Dr. Ben Carson, each June we commemorate the importance of home ownership during the coronavirus, the outbreak. Among the highest priorities at HUD has been to keep people secure in homes, representing more than 15% of gross domestic product. Housing is critical to our economy, valuable to American families, and the bedrock of HUD's mission. For most American families, their home is both their largest investment and the biggest expense, and serves as the cornerstone of health and security, particularly during the challenging times, said HUD Secretary Ben Carson. I know I interviewed Russell Simmons, but I saw on television he founded Def Jam when he was a student at a CUNY school. I think it was City of New York or maybe St. John's, a New York City university, and he started his own business and didn't have to finish college But even he, I'm sure, takes continuing education classes and teaches via interviews. So isn't life a class? It absolutely is. But also it's important for people to attend executive MBA programs to learn about new things. So then, but the cost, hey, sometimes people, if you ask, maybe someone will pay for you. So then that's about HUD, and HUD has different programs for homeowners, like home improvements. And I think it doesn't count towards your credit if you kind of maybe default, or maybe if, not defaulting on a loan, if you're late, but defaulting will be a problem. They have HUD's rehabilitation and repair loan. They have a property improvement loan and programs, and they say fixing up your home and how to finance it. That's all on HUD.gov. And then they have HUD approved lenders, home improvement loans for Native Americans, and rural home improvement and repair loan programs. And that's what HUD has. And I believe there are homes for sale on HUD. And they have single family home for sale and multi-family properties from HUD. So that's good to know. And they have programs for all types of people. It's false or true. They have programs to help homeowners, even if you earn a lot of money, I think. They have programs for you. And there's a map, and you can sell your home. And that's about that. When you're selling your home online, I think you should take your pictures off the wall, your family photographs. Maybe take the furniture out, or put furniture in. You know, a lot of people. So now, we're going to talk about Oklahoma, but that's important about HUD. And it's National Home Ownership Month. So I'm not going to talk about the people who committed crimes against me anymore. You can watch it on yesterday's episode. I listed everyone I think is bothering me. But it is illegal to have an illegal speaker or microphone in your home or follow around people and to do bad things because of whatever reason. And the city of Philadelphia Mayor Jim Kenney has no public appearances today. That was yesterday, actually. And let's talk about Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan owns the Hornets, the Charlotte Hornets. He's the majority owner, and Bob Johnson is the minority owner. And you can learn more about the Hornets on Hornets.com. And you can learn more about the NBA on NBA.com. Remember Black is the New Green, Marketing to Affluent African Americans. The 2010 edition, written by Leo Burnett. And Andrea Hoffman. Very interesting book about promoting to African Americans. Remember, a lot of radio shows are 4 hours with music and interviews. Well, it won't be 4 hours all of the time, but some people send me so much information. I thank them. I feel bad when I can't tell people about things. Anyway, you really have to be careful about people who work, background checking people who work in the healthcare industry. And we're going to talk about Oklahoma. Let's talk about the Academy of Arts and Sciences that announces the next phase of equity and inclusion initiatives. And representation and inclusion standards for Oscars eligibility is to be established. The Best Picture category set at 10 nominees for the 94th Oscars, and a resolution passed to amend bylaws to enact maximum governor term limits. The Academy wants to encourage equitable hiring practices and representation on and off the screen in order to better reflect the diversity of the film community. To ensure more diverse representation in collaboration with the Producers Guild of America, the Academy will create a task force for industry leaders appointed by David Rubin, and that will include Governor and A2020 Committee Chair Mr. Franklin to develop and implement new representation and inclusion standards for Oscars eligibility by July 31st, 2020. Eligibility for film is in consideration for the 93rd Academy Awards will not be impacted. The Best Picture category will be set at 10 nominees rather than a fluctuating number of nominations from year to year. The Academy will also implement a quarterly review process through the Academy Screening Room and streaming site for Academy members. Isn't it nice that you can make a film with your camera, with anything, with different types of mobile devices? Then let's watch Books TV this weekend if you can, or Tape Book TV. The human rights defender Jose Daniel Ferrer has spent most of his adult life in prison for trying to make Cuba a free nation, said U.S. Secretary of State Pompeo. It is the persistence, this courage, and the fact of physical danger and this resolve to help Cubans who yearn to be free that has earned Jose Daniel Ferrer the prestigious Truman Reagan Medal of Freedom Award. Thank you, U.S. Secretary of State Pompeo, for that information. Mom, it's alright, just ignore them. Even if I die, at least we'll die free of their criminal activity. the Legislative Black Caucus to hold a press conference about Juneteenth today at noon. And Michael Jordan and Bob Johnson are part of the Hornets, so remember there are tickets and suites available if they are available, if they're not already sold. But if they're not sold, you may be able to go to a WNBA game or a NBA D-League game in Greensboro. And it's called the NBA G League. So anyway, I honor my mother, and I always support my mother's initiatives. And the Jordan brand sells apparel and accessories on Nike.com and Jordan.com. And on Dior.com, the Jordan brand has a men's shoe. You can travel to MLB.com for more information about how to purchase tickets to an MLB game this season. And there's MAILB.com for the minor baseball league games. And Sakura Tequila is a tequila that's owned by Michael Jordan and his friends. And he attended the University of Chapel Hill. You can travel to, I think it's unc.edu for more information about the University of Chapel Hill. He has Michael Jordan's family clinic with Novant Health. And then Mercedes-Benz has cars that they sell on MBUSA.com, so they sell luxury automobiles. The University of Pennsylvania is where Donald Trump graduated from in Philadelphia, and that's a great school too. You can apply to that school and maybe you'll be accepted. And the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, you can apply to Harvard University at harvard.edu or Temple University at temple.edu. And then Union Square Hospitality Group is another restaurant group like Cornerstone Group, which has several restaurants in Chicago, New York, and in the United States of America. Austrian Airlines is going to resume flight operations on the 15th. And there's a live webcast of Governor Cuomo. And also Suffolk County Executive. So the Suffolk County Executive. Thank you. I met the Suffolk County Executive at CBS Radio. I wonder if you remember. Is this the same guy? We attended a lot of concerts at CBS Radio in Long Island and Suffolk County at different parks. So I believe I met, when was he? Oh, I didn't meet him. I met the other supervisor. The previous county executive. So some days I'll be in Suffolk, Dallas. Different days I'll be in different cities.
Unless you were very smart and disciplined about the way you reopen. That is the whole difference here. But the states that are having trouble reopen, and everybody
so Governor Cuomo has a book. Y'all can Google that.
There were protests.
I don't read a lot of books about politics, but I do read a lot. I did read The Audacity. I hope I downloaded it.
Can you see the virus? There is no virus. I mean, people had all sorts of theories. States that have reopened too quickly or uncontrolled are
but it's
now
good
starting
to conduct research.
So, we are the exact opposite. Since we've reopened, the number has continued to go down. Believe it or not. We reopen, it continues to go down.
So it's great to have video on demand. I can watch Squad Out. I like that show.
And that's what we have to continue to do. This is a website where
County Executive Malone is talking right now.
Track the rate of transmission of states across the nation. New York State, the lowest rate of transmission meaning the virus is spreading
And he's
at the
on
lowest
Facebook
rate
Live.
in the state of New York, of every state in America. That is incredible. We were the #1 state in terms of infection. #1 in the nation. #1 in the
The NAACP has a website, NAACP.org.
And now we're the
Remember,
last state.
you can't do everything. You have to say no when you are a leader, like myself.
That is because New
Thank you,
Yorkers
Rockland
stepped
Journals,
up,
for
they
writing
were
about
smart,
me
they were
and for
disciplined,
people
they did what they had to
nominating me.
do.
The civil rights is in starting your own business now. You can start your own business online almost for free with Facebook. You don't even need to pay for a website. You might have to pay for cable connection or internet connection. Now's the time to write a book. A lot of libraries have presses. A lot of universities have presses that publish nonfiction books. A lot of people can start your own publishing company in print. There's a lot of attorneys that will help small businesses and represent them for free at law clinics, at law schools. So the time is now. The time is today. And even I wrote a short story on Amazon and published it, printed it, and there's an ebook that people can purchase, and it only takes a few minutes or hours, I should say.
To children who are born in wealthier communities. Why do you still have child poverty in this nation? How do you
And Amazon,
justify
it's free
that?
actually to create your own a book on Amazon, but there is a paid publishing company on Amazon too. Sell an essay somewhere. These are things that you can do, and you can get free help if you're poor.
Public housing was federal. Section 8 certificates were federal. Section 8 project-based was federal. Federal Housing Administration, FHA, that was federal. They just ended that business. And then you wonder why we have an affordable housing crisis. And criminal justice reform should be done on a national level. And the House has been very aggressive on reform, the Congress, and I applaud them for it.
So Suffolk County, the Honorable Suffolk County Executive Stephen Ballone, Mr. Steve Ballone,
what it should be.
he's on Facebook.
We lead by example. And we lead by getting it done. We are a state of action. And that's us at our best. A great member of the New York State Assembly,
Usually he's
who
on
then
live.
went on to the Congress, a great pioneer, Shirley Chisholm. You don't make progress by standing on the sidelines, you make progress by implementing ideas.
Suffolk County is back in business. The local downtowns are alive this week, and Long Island officially entered phase 2 of reopening, and the residents have been waiting to get a haircut, grab a bite to eat at their favorite restaurant, and support the local retailers, said Mr. Ballone. And as he traveled across the county, starting in Wyandanch and making his way to Smithtown, Huntington, Port Jefferson, and Riverhead, before closing out the day in Patchogue, residents and business owners alike were both exiled and relieved, he said, to finally be back. And he said that he has come a long way. They have come a long way, and they're going to be stronger than ever.
I'm going to sign those bills in a moment. 58 reforms, so there's transparency. We're banning chokeholds. Attorney General, Special Prosecutor.
So he posted something, sorry, he's not live right now.
Race-based 9/11 reports. I want to applaud the leaders who have done great work. These are tough times to be in government. There's a lot of issues, a lot of crises, a lot of demands.
Sometimes I don't wear cosmetics if I don't have the budget, if I lose money, if someone takes it.
Who have done a great job, and
oh, this is amazing, live right now.
Resolution, and I want to applaud them.
I
also want to
I'm
applaud the
gonna wait for Vice President Pence and such faith leaders. It's so fun covering politicians, and a lot of them have businesses. The businesses are a lot of fun. If you have a dance company, if you want to teach people dance. So I love dancing, and it's great to take a dance classes anywhere. That's safe. So try to background check people if you there's the Chamber of Commerce, they usually background check people in your local area or the police.
Moving forward, there is still more to do. and we're going to do it in the state of New York. The truth is this: police reform is long overdue. And Mr. Floyd's murder is just the most recent murder. This is not just about Mr. Floyd's murder. It's about being here before. Many, many times before. It is about a long list that has been all across this country that always makes the same point: injustice.
So mom, we're like retired business. I joke that we're almost like retired. It's like being retired operating your own business.
And today is about enough is enough. It's about Fannie Lou Hamer. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. How many times do you have to see the same case before you do something? How many times? This was Eric Garner. This was Abner Louima. It was Amadou Diallo. Same case over and over and over, and still no change.
So there's a museum in Long Island, the Vanderbilt Museum.
God bless this country for standing up and saying enough is enough. I respect them, but it goes back. Certainly to
So you
Rodney
can Google
King
the Vanderbilt
in modern
Museum?
times.
That's
And
interesting.
the truth is, it goes back to
It
Dr.
is.
Martin Luther King, 1968.
That Vice President Pence is going to talk.
It is systemic
This is session with
discrimination
faith
and
leaders.
injustice in this nation. That's what it is. That's what today is about. And the answer, there is no quick fix to this. There is no, well, stop tear gas. Change
It's
the
important,
uniform.
people,
That's not what this is about, my
to
friend.
note
And it
that
would be a mistake
if
we went down that path.
someone accidentally tapes your home, to
This
be
is
nice to people.
systemic reform of police departments.
Thank God, nice.
This is sitting down and
A lot of
taking
recreation
look
and golf
at exactly
marinas
what
in
they
Suffolk
do and
County.
have been doing,
And
and
let's
looking
talk about
at
Suffolk
it from a
County.
new
Doing
lens
business in Suffolk County
of
tomorrow.
reform
everyone.
and reinvention.
So there's the
Because
everyone.
this has been
We are
40
really
to
honored
50
to
years
have
in the making.
a vice president with us.
Providing police
Looking
with
forward to this
military
time
equipment,
of
increasing
sharing.
the number of police.
So
Goes
delighted
back to
to
the
have
90s
those
in the
who sit
crime
on the
bill.
platform.
Looking at the
We have an
population
expectation that
explosion
this
in
is
our
going to
prisons.
be
This was a long
an
time
amazing
coming.
encounter, and I
And
appreciate
this is
it.
not about a press
Vice
release that's
President
going to
saying
solve it.
that we are here
The
to
way
listen.
we really
Came to
solve
listen.
this is we say
It's
that
my
every
hope
police
that we
agency
will all
in this
listen,
state, I believe,
have
should
an
have an
opportunity
initiative.
also to speak
Sit down at the table
words that will bring
with the
life
local community,
to our nation. So
address these
it's
issues,
been a joy watching
Get
you
to the
as
root
you
of these
move
issues.
through your
Get a
amazing
plan,
career and
pass that
to
plan by your local
Mordecai
government,
said to Esther, to
and if you don't,
the kingdom
you're
for
not
such
going to
a
get
time as
any
this.
additional state
I'm
funds.
honored
Period.
to be a part
We're
of
not
something
going to
that
fund
I think
police agencies
is
in
taking
this
place
state
in our nation that we look for
that
a
do
long
not
time.
look at what is
So let's
look
pray
at
together.
what has been happening, come to terms with it, and reform themselves.
Heavenly Father, we
We're
are
not going to
absolutely
be, as a
convinced
state government,
that we
subsidizing
can do nothing without you.
improper
Nothing that
police
will have
tactics.
any
We're
eternal
not doing it.
value to it. Well,
The
everything
governor is about New York State not subsidizing
So we
the
seek your help. We seek
not the
your
majority,
guidance.
but the minority of the
Holy
police
Spirit,
who
Develop a plan that reinvents and
knit us
modernizes
together.
are
strategies
able
for
to
Join our
programs in
hearts
their
in
communities.
so many
They
ways that
must formulate a plan.
long to see.
So I
that.
know police, law enforcement is in my family, I think. So there's a lot of good
Bias
police.
awareness, de-escalation, restorative justice, community-based outreach. They have to have a transparent citizen complaint disposition procedure.
Kairos moment that
So
will allow us
Remember about the Indianapolis
not just yelling out
500
the window
and
to find out what
having
happened
luxury
to that
events
complaint.
at that? There are women that attend these events. You know, women who may either be interested in sports or not interested in sports, but there's a lot of women that attend these events, like racing and Formula One racing, with men, and it's great to have promotional products for them or services and products to sell at these events for women that are attending with the men or their or spouses.
take advantage of that.
Every city,
Just teasing.
every county. It has to be done by
then-
your
Labored hard
Let's
at
talk about remember Rochester, Biloxi. We talked about in other episodes women opening up fashion businesses. There's the fashion button in New York City. That's a great resource. They'll give you a list of sources for manufacturers of your fashion apparel and accessories for free. And it's a fashion button saying the Parsons School of Design. There's FIT. You can take out the FIT for no credit to learn women, talking to women like me.
If there's no trust, the police can't effectively police.
Morris Chestnut stars in the Resident Celebrity series, I think, on video on demand. And please watch the Resident on video on demand. And there's the animated film Soul by Walt Disney Films, starring Angela Bassett and Jamie Foxx. I love Urban Outfitters in Philadelphia. I used to walk to Urban Outfitters in Philadelphia. It's like near Rittenhouse Square on the way to the Art Museum. There's Anthropology. There's the Lovebirds. There's Coach. I like shopping at Coach. Remember the movie The Lovebirds on Netflix? And the murals in Indianapolis, you all.
We live by an axiom here at our church in a divided society.
There are Startup 3117, the Arts Council of Indianapolis, and a Pattern are collaborating to bring local black artists and downtown business owners together to help the community listen and move forward. So,
Each one of us a specific purpose that He gave us all the resources that we need to fulfill that. But the highest form of government is self-government. And one of my favorite lines and my favorite...
And Michael Jordan has restaurants in the states of Connecticut, Illinois, and in the state of Washington. In the state of Washington, it's in a casino. In the state of Connecticut, it's in the Mohegan Sun Inn Casino. And in there's a steakhouse there and a cafe. And then also there's a restaurant in Illinois, a steakhouse on Michigan Avenue. I want to talk about Oklahoma now.
I want to say, just calculating this.
And he has several books that were written about him. And one is a children's book, and it's on my website, intelligentluxurymagazine.com.
We have longed to see some of the changes and breakthroughs that have come about in the nation since the administration that we got with the president. And what we were longing for, what we were praying for, it's like we're seeing answers to prayers.
So HUD.gov, you can learn about some homes for sale. Let's talk about the Oklahoma Historical Society.
Diversity in the context of adversity.
You can watch Vice President Pence participating in listening session with faith and community leaders on YouTube. I pray to travel to some of these events. It's really interesting. I'll be able to watch the events and not tape them, not even live, but talk about them after the event.
In order to get us there, but sometimes the price of success and that road that gets you there is strewn with
Yesterday I told you talked about HBCUs and increasing funding for HBCUs annually, and that was President Trump in Texas and Dallas.
And our nation needs blessing. We need caring. And we need to hear our leadership say, we love you. We know you're
Anyway, I love my beauty. I love beauty products. I'm wearing Black Radiance, Revlon lipstick, and I don't really need to try on makeup, but they have alcohol and antibacterial solution. They use Q-tips and cotton swabs, and they dispose of them when here in New York. Here in New York.
I'm looking forward, as I know Senator Toomey is, to gaining your insights about how we continue to move our nation forward
so
in the aftermath.
And Mrs. Andrea, I believe, Stewart Cousins is the majority leader in New York State. She's speaking right now too.
Trump has made it clear that justice will be served. I know I speak for people across this country when I say there's also no excuse for
I wonder if she's writing a book. That would be interesting.
that took place.
Governor Pence, who attended Indiana University, is talking about there's no excuse for violence and protesting.
Quelled that violence and allowed the peaceful protests to continue.
But isn't it nice? There's so many police that are walking with the protesters. They're protesting. The police are protesting. Police that are not trained correctly, or maybe it's really you're dealing with sometimes really bad people. Accidents happen, but then also even the president spoke out against killing suspects. But what do you do if a suspect threatens to kill a police officer? What if you're a man or a woman that calls the police? So let me talk about Oklahoma's Black history. The Oklahoma Historical Society has okhistory.org, and Black history is Oklahoma history, and you can learn more about the museums and historic sites on okhistory.org. If you're a vendor or have your own business, you can go to the Oklahoma Public Transportation. They call it ODOT, and that's ODOT.org to learn more information about becoming a vendor of Oklahoma's transportation system. It's a multimodal transportation agency whose mission is to provide a safe. I might cut off in a few minutes in this video and start another video. The public transportation is a critical element of Oklahoma's transportation network for the elderly and for those with disabilities. Is sometimes their only available means of mobility. So that's on ODOT.org.
Providing additional training,
right now, Mr. Heasey is the Speaker of the legislature
efforts by police departments around the country
of New York
to meet the very highest standards and to be trained in de-escalation efforts. And so we'll work with law enforcement, respecting the extraordinary role and sacrifices that men and women on the thin blue line make every day. We'll work with them and work with community leaders to identify ways that we can improve. Let me also say that we are not going to stop there.
If this video ends, I'm just listening to, I'll probably continue to listen to Governor Andrew Cuomo and Mr. Heasey, the Speaker, and Mrs. Cousins, the majority leader in the
more than 4,000 opportunities.
legislature. I don't know a lot about politics. It's false. I just can't. It's impossible to remember.
Strong support for Senator Tim Scott.
Let's talk about my representatives.
Building on that record of success. Look for ways
because someone made said bad things about him.
Businesses greater access to capital.
Anyway, so thank you, New York State Senator Cousins, Stuart Cousins, Miss Stuart Cousins.
And the president also spoke
she does a lot about, she works for tenant protections across New York State, and about the 2019 New York State Senate Veterans Hall of Fame honorees. She
population can understand the injustice behind allowing parents to choose where their children go to school, whether it's public, private, parochial, or religious school. The African American community has led in this cause, and President Trump and I are proud to oversee
so he is the Assembly Speaker, Carl Heasey.
We're going to work to expand educational choice opportunities for minority families, African Americans, and finally, in my role as lead of the White House Coronavirus Task Force, all of us with real heartbreak have observed the consequences of historic disparities in healthcare between African Americans and other minorities.
So she's from Assembly District 97.
We're going to address that. Reforms that expand.
She's very stylish. I wear my hair sometimes like curly. We both have curly hair. And I wear it to the side. And that's Senator Assemblywoman Jaffe. And she works for the
ears to hear. More emotional, and organize to see how we might work together. I want to assure you on behalf of the President
Someone starts filling my head, maybe I'll remember.
the progress that we've made, expanding prosperity and respecting religious liberty, respecting the values that we cherish in churches just like this in that country. We're going to do our level best to see
and no one knows everything.
not just to ensure law and
What I'm
order,
talking about, but I do talk about the New York State Legislature's
that we
bills,
have justice
the
for every
legislature,
American.
and they have an agenda
Our law
this thing.
enforcement community has the resources they need to do their job.
These masks, it's hard to breathe in these masks. Exercising in a mask,
We're also going to look.
don't swim in the mask.